Chapter 11:10. In the supreme space, everyone was in a killing frenzy. Even if their bodies died, their souls would turn into demons and choose to self-destruct. Unless the two were not on the same level and were killed on the spot. They were not enemies, but mortal enemies. The Holy Lands did not differentiate between each other. They killed on sight. More than 400 people were in a chaotic battle. Everyone was in danger. If they were surrounded, they would die without a doubt. Yi Qinghan and the other super-existences were very strong, but everyone who saw them ran away. They did not dare to fight and could only choose to run. At this moment, he pulled out the divine bird and the little miser. "Help me find the supreme god stones," Yi Qinghan said hoarsely. The divine bird was thinking of doing something. Last time, it had broken the contract and escaped, angering Yi Qinghan. If it did not do something this time, it would not have a good time in the future. "Leave it to me. This divine bird guarantees that you will be first," the divine bird said solemnly. "Will there be a reward?" the little miser asked weakly. "Do you want me to slap you?" Yi Qinghan retorted in annoyance. The little miser hurriedly shook his head. At this moment, he did not dare to show off to Yi Qinghan. The divine bird stood on Yi Qinghan's shoulder and looked down. After a long time, it pointed into the distance. "Move quickly to the left. There must be a special stone within 300 miles. Yi Qinghan left with a swoosh. The distance of 100 miles was covered in an instant. 10 breaths later, Yi Qinghan appeared outside a valley with the divine bird. The supreme god stones were placed outside the valley. There were 3 of them. They were thrown messily like trash. Yi Qinghan's imprint on his forehead moved and the great wasteland's monument took them away. "Continue. I want at least 200 supreme god stones." Yi Qinghan saw that the divine bird could find the supreme god stones so easily. It would be a waste of its talent if he did not make use of it. The divine bird was furious. Treasure hunting was very tiring. It was not as if it could be done with a wave of its hand. So it looked up and glared at Yi Qinghan. "Why do you want so many? You can get full marks with 100 pieces. Are you pure or stupid? We have all the divine stones in our hands, so we can sell them. 10 godstones for 1 drop of paramount divine power. When the time comes, all the Holy Lands will fight to buy it," Yi Qinghan said coldly, exasperated. "You're even more of a money grubber than me." The little money grubber snorted and mocked. Yi Qinghan laughed coldly. "When you are in danger, don't ask me to use my overbought divine power to protect you." The little money grubber immediately withered. After that, the little money grubber and the divine bird worked together to search for the supreme divine stones. He flashed continuously in the boundless space, and also took the initiative to attack people. When the experts of some powers saw him, they threw down the divine stones they found and fled. After Yi Qinghan obtained the divine stones, he did not pursue them. Instead, he focused on searching for treasures in peace. He was prepared to control all of the divine stones and then sell them in exchange for supreme godly power. Along the way, Yi Qinghan met Medusa and brought her along. After 6 hours in the space, Yi Qinghan found more than 80 pieces of divine stones. Wherever he went, there would be no more supreme godly stones. Even if there were, they would be underground and could not be penetrated. There was no need to waste time excavating them. In the afternoon, the two strolled through the mountains and rivers. Unexpectedly, they ran into Ji Tianling. When Ji Tianling saw Yi Qinghan, his legs trembled. Only he knew that Yi Qinghan was the Azura King, and the Azura King was Yi Qinghan. He had personally fought with Yi Qinghan, and he was not a match for Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan looked at Ji Tianling and sneered. He took large strides forward and closed in on Ji Tianling. "Brother Yi, we have no enmity. Spare my life. 3 drops of paramount godly power that have been diluted 10 times. That's all I have left." Ji Tianling's face turned bitter. He did not even think of fighting back. Yi Qinghan was startled. He guessed that this guy recognized him. His eyes flashed with a cold light. Ji Tianling was frightened by Yi Qinghan's gaze and retreated. He was on the verge of tears. He said in despair, "Brother Yi, you said that if I was bullied in the future, I would look for you. You can't do this to me." Yi Qinghan was now sure that Ji Tianling had recognized him. He coldly asked, "Who did you tell my identity?" "No. I swear to the heavens. I did not tell anyone. From that day onwards, I treated you as my boss. I have no intention of betraying you," Ji Tianling repeatedly shouted. He was afraid that Yi Qinghan would not believe him. He wanted nothing more than to kneel and swear. "Kill him. This trash is useless." The divine bird looked at this piece of trash with disdain and ridiculed. Yi Qinghan shook his head. He walked to Ji Tianling's side and patted him on the shoulder, almost causing him to kneel on the ground. "I said that I would protect you. Why would I kill you?" Yi Qinghan supported Ji Tianling and said with a smile, "Don't worry. Follow me, but don't speak nonsense. Say what you should say, and don't know what you shouldn't say. Understand?" "Understood, understood." Ji Tianling's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He wiped it with his hand, not daring to look Yi Qinghan in the eye. If Yi Qinghan wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as waving his hand. "Keep the diluted paramount godly power for yourself. You know what to do when you find the paramount godly stone, right?" Yi Qinghan calmly asked. "Give it all to boss," Ji Tianling said without hesitation. "Be good. Go." Yi Qinghan smiled. Da. After Ji Tianling received the order to leave, he frantically rushed into the distance. He didn't even dare to look back. His speed was several times faster than usual. Perhaps this was the will to survive. Bah! What a spineless person! How can you be so cheap? The divine bird scolded disdainfully. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes and looked at the divine bird. Ji Tianling Kong's wretchedness was much better than it. If the divine bird was in such danger, it would be begging on its knees, wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. Now it actually had the face to call others wretchedness. Yi Qinghan's speed was too fast. Wherever he passed, there would be no more paramount godly stones. Many people couldn't find anything behind him. Instead, it was very dangerous. They could be chased at any time. Emperor Yi strolled in the wilderness, hugging a huge divine zither. It was almost as tall as her. She looked very weak, but no one dared to provoke her. Some of the divine sons of the Holy Lands didn't dare to act recklessly and stayed far away. However, there were always blind people. Roar! At this moment, a white tiger with an extremely pure bloodline from the white tiger holy race revealed its true form. It turned into a bolt of lightning and pounced from the distance. It was a dozen meters tall and, compared to the little lowly Emperor Yi, it was like a giant. Its fangs were enough to swallow Emperor Yi whole. Emperor Ye's divine robes fluttered in the wind. Sensing the murderous aura behind him, he turned his head and looked into the distance. The majestic white tiger pounced from the sky like a hot knife through butter. Its hair fluttered in the wind, covering its face and obscuring its eyes. However, it did not panic at all. It only gently plucked a string. Buzz! The string vibrated lightly as a strand of austere aura broke through the shackles and blasted into the white tiger's head. Roar! The white tiger bared its fangs, but it did not stop in its tracks. It continued to charge forward. It was attracted by Renhuang Ye's qi and blood, and had completely lost its mind. Hum hum hum. Hum 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 hum. Emperor Yi held the zither with one hand and spread open the 5 fingers of his right hand. He grabbed 9 strings and gently pulled them forward. The zither's melody was solemn and majestic, causing one's blood to boil and heaven and earth to wail. It was as if the mountains and rivers were moving along with it. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Her white robes fluttered, revealing her slender long legs that were as straight as a lone poplar. They were wrapped in a hazy white muslin and her skirt covered half of her face. She was extremely beautiful and seemed to be in harmony with heaven and earth. Boom! The heavenly melody suddenly became filled with killing intent. The energy was like a blade that cut through the clouds and blasted towards the white tiger. Even the space was cut apart. It was terrifying and fierce, causing the white tiger's hair to stand on end. It turned around and wanted to run away. Chapter 11:11. Hum. Whoosh, the sound of the void shattering reverberated through the mountains. The white tiger was so frightened that it turned around and fled. However, it had provoked Emperor Yi and its fate was sealed. Boom! The blade's shadow directly flipped the white tiger to the ground. The force was so strong that the white tiger rolled dozens of times on the ground without stopping. Whoosh! Emperor Yi tapped the air with his toes and appeared in front of the white tiger like a fairy, blocking its escape route. His 10 fingers spread out and the zither floated in the air. The melody triggered the order of the laws in the space. Glowing runes appeared around the white tiger and spun continuously, enveloping it. The space inside was getting smaller and smaller. Roar, roar, roar. The white tiger was shocked. It kept waving its huge paws to hit the glowing runes. However, it could not move them at all. Glowing wind blades appeared within the runes. They were extremely fierce and stirred wildly. Even a giant soldier god could be torn apart. The white tiger was in despair. It looked at the approaching blade's shadow in horror. The space was being torn apart and it was almost at its side. No matter how hard it tried, it could not open a path to escape. The aura of death enveloped the white tiger, making it powerless. It could only kneel on the ground and beg continuously. Buzz! Emperor Yi pressed the strings of the zither. The sound of the zither suddenly disappeared and the melody returned to nothingness. The energy of the enchantment that enveloped the white tiger also disappeared. The soul-stealing blade shadow also dispersed. "Submit to me and I will spare your life." Emperor Ye's large, round eyes flickered with a star-like radiance. They were deep and boundless, causing people to be unable to break free from his gaze. His soft voice was as pleasant as the sounds of nature. It was incomparably clear and resounded in the air. It sounded soft and weak, but in the ears of the white tiger, it was like the will of a supreme god. It did not dare to refute. "Let's go." Emperor Yi tapped the ground again. His figure was ethereal as he landed on the back of the white tiger with his zither. He placed his legs to the side and sat on the white tiger's back. He was almost one with the white tiger. If one did not look carefully, one would not know that there was a person on the white tiger. The white tiger trembled and continued to move forward, not daring to do anything excessive. Emperor Yi gradually relaxed and laid comfortably on the white tiger's back. He leaned his head against the tiger's head and crossed his legs. He hugged the divine zither and looked at the dusky sky. He gradually closed his eyes to rest, but the white tiger didn't dare to do it again. 500,000 kilometers away, Di Longtian encountered a murderous aura. He encountered Dao Tian Yunfei. This fellow had used the sky splitter divine bow to send Mo Li flying, so his cultivation was definitely not weak. However, he no longer had the divine bow, but he had a giant divine weapon. At this moment, he was forcefully blocking Di Longtian. Di Longtian gripped the Heaven Dao God slaying sword tightly, and his right hand pressed on the sword hilt. His golden armor exuded the aura of reincarnation, and a cold gleam flashed across his eyes. Without wasting any time, he drew his sword and prepared to fight. The heavenly Tao killing deity sword's soaring sword chi pierced through the clouds, dispersing the clouds and revealing the sun. A blue sky and white clouds appeared. Boom! The distance of 1,000 meters was considered very close in the outside world, but in the supreme space it was very far. Dao Tian Yunfei leaned back and pulled the divine bow to its limit. A divine arrow pierced through the sky and collided with the Heaven Dao sword in Di Longtian's hand. The terrifying impact sent him flying, and the azure dragon mark on his arm suddenly released a divine light. His strength suddenly increased by 1,000 times. Hua! Di Longtian's arm moved back slightly, and with a sudden burst of strength, the divine arrow in front of him was actually split into two and flew past him. Instead of retreating, Di Longtian advanced. His dragon aura was vast and mighty, and with a long roar, he dispersed the dusky clouds, revealing the azure sky above. Kill! Xiu Xiu Xiu, Di Longtian roared, and like a hot knife through butter, the Heaven Dao sword slashed out hundreds of sword shadows. Great Nirvana sword art. Sword destroying the firmament. Hua! Hiss hiss hiss. The sound of space shattering made people feel despair. The sword chi first attacked Dao Tian Yunfei's side. Dao Tian Yunfei was shocked. He didn't expect Di Longtian to be able to split his divine arrow. He couldn't react in time and lost the initiative. He was continuously sent flying by Di Longtian's sword. When he drew the bow again, he didn't have the chance to pull it back. Boom! 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 The sword chi clashed with the rocks, leaving only a few sword marks. Sparks flew everywhere, but it couldn't destroy the rock. The space here was too strong. It was so strong that the giant god couldn't even cause any damage here. Shua! Di Longtian flipped his hand again and swept across Dao Tian Yunfei's head, cutting off a few strands of black hair. Sword of leaving hand. Shua! 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 The Heaven Dao sword left his hand and pierced through the left side of Dao Tian Yunfei's waist. Puchi! Dao Tian Yunfei's defensive armor was effortlessly pierced through by the Heaven Dao sword, and blood spurted out. Dao Tian Yunfei screamed and used the force to escape. However, Di Longtian had received Yi Qinghan's close combat inheritance. There were very few who could win against him in close combat. Moreover, he had the Azure Dragon mark. Perhaps only Yi Qinghan's body and close combat could compete with him. Humph! I want you to die now. You won't be able to escape from my palm. Di Longtian transformed into a dragon and soared into the sky. He chased after Dao Tian Yunfei with a dive. Roar! The Azure Dragon soared into the sky and swung its tail at Dao Tian Yunfei's body. Dao Tian Yunfei rolled on the ground and rushed into the ravine, limiting Di Longtian's combat power to the limit. He could only return to his original body and charge forward. Die! Dao Tian Yunfei swallowed a drop of supreme godly power that was 100 times diluted. His godly power was vast and mighty, almost breaking his body. His divine bow was almost broken by him. A divine arrow shot out, carrying a trace of his will, toward Di Longtian. Shua! 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 Di Longtian activated the Azure Dragon's godly power and waved the Heavenly Dao sword to form a huge 8 trigrams sword formation. Just as it was formed, it was struck by the divine arrow and almost shattered. The terrifying power made it impossible for him to stand firm and forced him to retreat. Shua! 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 Di Longtian's legs were almost broken. The 8 trigrams sword formation in front of him would shatter at any moment. Once it did, even with the protection of the golden armor, he would lose half his life. He definitely wouldn't be able to withstand Dao Tian Yunfei's second attack. Even if he could, the third and fourth attacks would take his life. Death descended upon him, forcing Di Longtian to throw his head back and roar. The mark on his forehead merged with the mark of the Azure Dragon. Azure Dragon scales covered his entire body, and the veins on his body bulged. It was as if he was also a member of the dragon race. Roar! A dragon roar came out of Di Longtian's mouth, and a vast and pure Azure Dragon supreme godly power surged out. The 8 trigrams sword formation in front of him suddenly strengthened and forcibly shattered the divine arrow. No. Can. Azure Dragon Saint Sun Mark. You're the successor of the Azure Dragon Supreme God? Dao Tian Yunfei yelled in shock. He stared at Di Long Tian in disbelief, as if he had seen a ghost. If he was the successor of the Azure Dragon, then what about the Dragon Sons of the Azure Dragon Sacred Area? Die. The Azure Dragon mark on Di Longtian's forehead emitted a blurry figure of a small azure dragon. It coiled around his golden body, causing his flesh to erupt with power. His strength was instantly increased by 100 times, almost comparable to Yi Qinghan's all-out attack. Bang! A sword descended from the sky and appeared right above Dao Tian Yunfei's head. Dao Tian Yunfei raised his godly bow to block the attack, but the powerful godly bow failed to stop the sword of heaven's path. It was slashed apart, and even his head was split open. Piu Qi. Dao Tian Yunfei died tragically on the spot. His godhead did not escape, and his soul was destroyed by the sword intent. His blood splattered everywhere, dyeing the beach nearby red. The first powerful god's son had been slain, indicating that more god's sons would fall in the future. A solemn melody echoed between the heavens and earth. The experts in all directions were fighting, but Yi Qinghan did the opposite, and snatched the supreme god's stone from them. Chapter 11-12. Outside of Blue Sky City, more than 400 life tablets were placed together. Everyone's name was written on them, and they were constantly shattering. When Dao Tian Yunfei died, the experts of the Dao Heaven True Master Holy Land turned pale. This was the strongest godson that had died so far. Every Holy Land had suffered casualties. The peerless Holy Land had the least casualties, but Nangong Ao Shui was also injured. There was only one power that had not suffered a single casualty, and that was the insane sect. In the space, Nangong Yunlan was crazily killing in order to find Nangong Yunao and Nangong Ao Shui. Their strength was not at the peak, so it was easy for them to die. When Nangong Yunlan flipped out, it was equivalent to the most extreme existence going crazy. Wherever he passed, no one dared to obstruct him. His goal wasn't to kill, but to search for someone. Therefore, whenever Ji Tianxin and Marshal King met him, they would take the initiative to avoid him. They didn't want both sides to suffer and benefit others. However, on the other side, Nangong Ao Shui was very far away from Nangong Yunlan. It was almost impossible for her to wait for him to save her. Now that she was severely injured, she was not far from death. If she encountered another expert from another race, she would die. At this moment, she was hiding in a small valley, leaning on a rock. Her left shoulder was pierced by a sword, and the rock under her body was stained with blood. She swallowed a saint healing medicine to stabilize her injury, but she had lost more than half of her battle strength. Her wound was wrapped with a white cloth, but her white robe had turned red. Perhaps it was a coincidence, but Yen Yunbei had found 3 godly stones and arrived nearby. He smelled the scent of blood and approached quietly with a dagger. His divine sense was restricted, so he did not know that Nangong Ao Shui was inside the valley. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes as he went around the mountain. Looking at the blood-red robe, he reached for Nangong Ao Shui's neck. Nangong Ao Shui did not realize that someone had already put a dagger into her body. She was still breathing evenly. She moved her body slightly, and her wound was almost torn apart. She could not help but moan, which made Yen Yunbei stunned. His fingers trembled, and the dagger was pressed against her chin. Nangong Ao Shui's entire body was stiff. If Yen Yunbei used a little force, she would die. Therefore, she did not dare to move. Yen Yunbei reached out his hand and turned Nangong Ao Shui's face. He was also shocked as he recognized that she was from the peerless Holy Land. Whoosh! Yen Yunbei's face turned red. He put away his dagger and took a few steps back. He quickly said, "I'm sorry. I didn't expect it to be you. I'm Yen Yunbei from the Kuang sect." Nangong Aoshue was so scared that her beautiful face turned pale. She didn't react for a long time. She stared at Yen Yunbei for a long time before she recognized him. Her body went limp. She couldn't imagine the feeling of being half a step away from death. "Fellow Taoist Yen, you scared me to death. How did you do it?" Nangong Aoshue said with a bitter smile. Yen Yunbei smiled awkwardly. He had never dealt with women in his life, let alone such a beautiful woman. In addition, the process of getting to know her was a little awkward. Now, he didn't know what to say. I cultivate assassination technique," Yen Yunbei said honestly. Cough cough, Nangong Aoshue coughed out blood. His face was deathly pale, and his qi and blood were unstable. It was difficult for him to recover quickly. "Fellow Taoist, are you all right? I have a healing panacea here. You can use it first." Yen Yunbei was like a young man who had just been born. He blushed and handed over a golden pill. The expression on his handsome face was very strange. He wanted to get close to Nangong Aoshue, but didn't dare to. "Thank you." Nangong Aoshue didn't refuse. If she didn't repair it in time, she wouldn't be able to last until tonight. Nangong Aoshue took the golden pill and swallowed it. It melted in her body and turned into a rolling divinity that filled her limbs and bones. A warm current appeared in her torn wounds. Then she felt cool. This was a necessary divine pill for the Kuang sect. Yi Qinghan had gathered a lot of divine herbs to refine this divine pill. If she had two, it was equivalent to 2 lives. Soon, Nangong Aoshue's face looked better. Her eyes were full of gratitude. However, when she saw Yen Yunbei's shy look, she couldn't help but laugh. "Fellow Taoist, you're so cute. I thought the Kuang sect was full of old foxes like Yi Qinghan." Nangong Aoshue teased with a smile. Yen Yunbei didn't know how to reply. He could only stand there and wait for Nangong Aoshue to completely repair it. Then, they could leave this place together. Nangong Aoshue saw that Yen Yunbei didn't speak, so she stopped teasing him. She sat cross-legged on the ground and healed her wounds. However, the smell of blood in the valley was too strong. When the wind blew, it could be smelled from a few miles away. At this moment, 2 groups of people were approaching quickly. One group had 3 people and the other had 2 people. Yen Yunbei sensed the approaching enemies. He quickly woke Nangong Aoshue up and whispered, "Fellow Taoist, be careful. There are enemies approaching." "How many people?" Nangong Aoshue was shocked and asked quickly. 5 people. One group came from the entrance and the other from the exit. "Our way is blocked." Yen Yunbei glanced around, looking for a way to escape. "You go first. My injuries can't be healed in a short time. You can't escape with me." Nangong Aoshue couldn't bear to implicate Yen Yunbei and said hurriedly. Yen Yunbei held the dagger in his hand. His aura suddenly shook and the pressure was terrifying. Even the will in his eyes changed. "I, the crazy sect, will never give up on my teammates. You can focus on healing your injuries. I will delay them," Yen Yunbei said in a deep voice. Nangong Aoshue was stunned by Yen Yunbei's words. She didn't expect the shy Yen Yunbei to have such an aura. "Ha ha, can you delay them? I can't stand the people of the crazy sect. Today, I will let you have one less person." A cold voice resounded in the valley. Boom. 3 silhouettes descended forcefully, followed by 2 more silhouettes. Both the front and back paths were blocked. Yen Yunbei looked at the clothes of the 2 group. It was obvious that they were not from the same group. His eyes flashed coldly and he said, "Let's see if I can delay them." Whoosh. Yen Yunbei was still in front of them a second ago. In the next second, he disappeared. A wisp of smoke dispersed into the air without a trace. "Whoever moves will die." A deep voice reverberated through the valley. It was impossible to tell where the voice came from. At this moment, the 5 of them were locked onto at the same time. It was as if there was a sharp sword hanging above their heads. Anyone who moved the sword would fall and shatter their source of life. The 5 of them changed their expressions at the same time. Their eyeballs moved randomly, but no one dared to take a step forward. Nangong Aoshue was shocked at first. She didn't expect Yan Yunbei to be such a contradictory person. He was so ruthless to his enemies, but he was reticent and even shy to his teammates. His domineering aura at this moment made her tremble. However, she quickly reacted. She no longer cared about the 5 people around her. Instead, she used all her strength to activate the divine medicine in her body to heal her injuries. Yan Yunbei was stalling for time with his life. He cultivated the art of assassination. If the other party really dared to move, he could only kill one of them. At that time, he would be exposed and die miserably. Chapter 11:13. In the narrow valley, a force was rising. A pair of eyes was staring at everyone, and a sharp knife was pointed at their throats. Whoever moved would die. There were 5 people on both sides. No one wanted to die, and no one wanted to move. They all hoped that the other side would lure Yan Yunbei out. However, those who could reach this level of cultivation were not fools. No one was willing to take a blow for the other. Nangong Aoshue seized the opportunity and tried her best to absorb the godly power and medicine. Half of the injury on her left shoulder was healed, and she swallowed another godly pellet. She quickly stood up and looked at the 2 sides vigilantly. They were unfamiliar, but she was sure that they were followers of a certain power. However, she couldn't tell which power they belonged to because their clothes were not from the sacred land. Nangong Aoshue took a few steps back and kept a certain distance from the 5, forming a triangle. The situation was very dangerous, and no one dared to attack. You retreat first. Yan Yunbei's voice echoed in the valley again. The 5 powerful warriors raised their eyebrows and tried to track him down, but failed. Nangong Aoshue also didn't know where Yan Yunbei was. She knew that he could leave at any time if he wanted to. He was just stalling for time for her. Therefore, she didn't hesitate and slowly moved towards the mountain peak. The mountain peak was very steep, and rocks kept falling down. Nangong Aoshue stepped on the rocks, and without anyone stopping her, she easily rushed out of the mountain peak and disappeared into the other side. The valley was extremely quiet and the 5 were sweating. They were all waiting anxiously for fear that Yan Yunbei would suddenly attack them. If he really wanted to kill them, he could easily kill one of them. However, once he showed himself, he wouldn't be able to escape. The 4 of them could easily injure him, and it would be extremely difficult for him to hide again. Time passed by slowly, and the 5 were staring at each other. They didn't dare to be careless. 2 hours after Nangong Aoshue left, the 5 realized that the pair of eyes had disappeared, and the godly weapon on their throats had also disappeared. The sense of crisis was gone, and they immediately relaxed. They felt weak all over. Otherwise, the 3 of them would have immediately attacked the other side. Although the other 2 were no longer locked down, they were still on high alert and quickly left the valley. 100 miles away, Yan Yunbei pulled Nangong Aoshue and quickly moved forward. They avoided the danger and entered an iron shrub forest. The thorns on the shrub were like divine weapons, extremely sharp. Divine clothes would be torn apart upon contact. Nangong Aoshue's battle robe had already been torn apart. In the supreme space, they were still fighting fiercely. The strong were always strong. No matter what kind of experts they encountered, they couldn't stop their footstep. A day later, more than 20 experts emerged from within the space. The elites retreated upon seeing them, not daring to resist. Yi Qinghan, Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng, Gu Qingyu, Di Longtian, and Emperor Yi of the insane faction occupied half of the territory. Demon God Mountain's Mo Li, spiritual body Qin Wentian, dark night demon god Yi Kuan. Ling Xiaoyu, the divine son of Wu Zulong of the sorcerer tribe, the luminous martial battle body. The master of space, the overlord of sky. The purple saint of the Z clan. Dao Tianxiong Fei of the Dao heavenly true Lord holy ground. The supreme battle monarch of the supreme holy land, Nangong Yunlan. White tiger holy lord, fairy divine phoenix, vermilion bird battle god Hua Tianhe, primal chaos divine child Ji Wuhan. Martial king Ji Tianxian of the karma holy land. Xianyu An Qing emperor. The son of the wind Feng Qingshan. Most of them were saints' sons, or divine daughters. They emerged from more than 400 king-level experts and won without a fight. They definitely didn't rely on their foundation, but their true strength. In the space, the first day of fighting ended. A total of 53 people had died, leaving only about 400 left. The death rate wasn't high, but everyone knew that most of them were searching for the Supreme God's stones on the first day. The number of deaths on the second day would definitely exceed the number of deaths on the first day. The third day would be even more tragic. It would be considered good if there were even 100 people left. This kind of loss would make the Holy Land feel the pinch. However, Yi Qinghan wasn't in a hurry. In this day, he had collected nearly 300 stones and found Xian Yan of the insane faction. The people of the insane faction were quickly gathering. As long as 3 to 5 people gathered, even if there weren't any top experts, the kings of the Holy Lands wouldn't dare to act recklessly. Moreover, these 3 to 5 people were from the insane faction. They were all protected by golden armors. If the 5 of them worked together, even Moli wouldn't be able to escape. Emperor Yi kept a low profile. He had been lying on the back of the White Tiger's descendant and hadn't made a move yet. However, everyone knew that he was one of the most terrifying experts. In one day, Emperor Yi had found 3 insane faction experts: Yi Chentian, Divine Lotus Empress, and Qitian Monkey King. Yi Qinghan had found Xian Yan and Medusa. In addition, Yen Yunbei and Nangong Aoshua were together. The remaining experts were all able to protect themselves. Jiang Jingtian, Gu Qingyu, Li Feng, Zixian, and Di Longtian were all experts among experts. Xia Ziluo's dark sky art had been cultivated to the extreme. With the protection of the golden armors and the Hell's reincarnation map, he could at least stay alive. Nie Tian of the insane faction carried his huge axe and was incomparably valiant. Unexpectedly, he encountered the descendant of Pan Gu, Coiling Tiger. Nie Tian was a reckless man who didn't know what was good for him and wanted to compete with Coiling Tiger. He waved his huge axe and chopped down, causing heaven and earth to tremble. Coiling Tiger looked at Nie Tian speechlessly. Coiling Tiger was a top existence, and his cultivation wasn't any weaker than Emoli, the descendant of the demon god. After dodging a few times, he found that Nie Tian's huge axe moves were similar to the Pan clan's axe moves. Most importantly, the Pan clan's axe moves had never been exposed. Nie Tian had purely figured it out by himself. Coiling Tiger appreciated this talent and didn't kill him. Instead, he defeated him and kept him by his side. As time passed, the people from the various holy lands began to gather. If anyone was alone during the day, they would definitely die if they ran into an enemy force. That night, Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng, and the others were quietly approaching. In the middle of the night, Jiang Jingtian and Li Feng ran into each other, while Gu Qingyu and Zixian ran into each other. Di Longtian seemed to be extremely tired as he dragged his body forward. His sea of consciousness was in chaos, and the mark on his forehead was flickering uncontrollably. "What's wrong with me? Why am I so tired?" Di Longtian didn't understand. He was getting more and more tired, as if all the essence in his body had been sucked out. Now, even walking was extremely slow, and his vision was blurry. Hum, hum, hum. The heavenly Tao sword violently trembled and let out a long hum, as if it was trying to wake Di Longtian up. However, it still couldn't wake him up. Swoosh! A black shadow pounced over from the sky, its sharp claws tearing through the darkness, aiming for the back of Di Longtian's head. Perhaps it was a subconscious action, but Di Longtian's body twisted, and he transformed into an azure dragon that soared into the sky. The sharp claws were directly torn apart by the black shadow, and he didn't even see what it was before it was directly swallowed. After swallowing it, Di Longtian returned to his original form and fell from the sky. He was dizzy and directly fainted. Perhaps he wasn't fated to die yet. Xia Ziluo noticed the battle from afar and quietly approached. When she saw that the one on the ground was actually Di Longtian, she hurriedly carried him away and quickly disappeared into the darkness. Chapter 11:14. In the pitch-black night, in the desolate space, other than the empty mountain range and the iron-like shrubs, there was only a slight breeze. Yi Qinghan led Xian Yan and Medusa to search for the disciples of the insane sect, as well as the supreme god stones. In one day and one night, he had collected at least 350 supreme god stones. The divine bird and the little money grubber were about to collapse from exhaustion. However, Yi Qinghan had a smile on his face. His attitude towards them was much better than before. "Boss, is that enough? 350 is enough for you to sell." The divine bird cried out. It couldn't wait to return to its body to rest. The little money grubber directly went on strike. He would rather be beaten to death than to search for treasures. Yi Qinghan shrugged and decided to stop searching. He began to speed up and search for the experts in the space. He was prepared to kill some of the saint children of the sacred grounds and force them to buy the supreme god stones. Otherwise, they would be eliminated. Swoosh! Swoosh! The three of them hurried forward. In such a large space, there were less than 400 people left. It wasn't easy for them to bump into each other. The sky gradually brightened. Outside a spacious desert, people from the 5 major powers were gathered. They were facing each other with killing intent. Sky Overlord led 7 experts from the space-time sacred ground to the south. Ji Tianxian Martial King led 6 followers from the Karma sacred ground and Ji Tianxian Demon Goddess to the north. Demon God Mountain's Dark Knight Demon God and 4 top experts from the Demon God Mountain were in the east. Vermilion Bird Battle God Huatianhe led a powerful saint beast to the west. There were 4 people standing in the middle, their backs facing each other as they vigilantly looked around. They were Li Feng, Jiang Jingtian, Gu Qingyu, and Zi Xian. They were very unlucky. They were surrounded by people from all directions and didn't dare to move. At this time, they could only trust their own people. Dark Knight Demon God Yi Kuan's eyes were filled with evil qi. His mouth revealed a trace of confidence and arrogance. His eyes were so evil that people didn't dare to look at them directly. His lips were black, very different from his previous good-for-nothing appearance. People from the insane sect. Yi Kuan grinned. His hoarse and sharp voice gave people goosebumps. They didn't know what his attitude was, but the way he looked at Gu Qingyu was clearly different. His murderous intent was soaring to the sky. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows and looked at Yi Kuan with dissatisfaction. He coldly said, "They are my uncles, don't act recklessly." "I know, they are my brothers." "Ha ha ha ha." Yi Kuan laughed maniacally. "What?" Qin Wentian was too young and did not know about the relationship between Yi Qinghan and Yi Kuan. At this moment, he was somewhat puzzled. "Yi Qinghan is my brother, and they are my brother's subordinates. How can I not give them face?" Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly. No one knew if he was resenting Yi Qinghan or if he really cared about their brotherhood. No wonder Yi Qinghan wanted to find out if the Dark Knight Devil Lord had returned to the Devil God Mountain. So it turned out that they were blood brothers. The 5 powers did not act rashly for the time being. Each of them had about the same number of people. Although the insane sect had fewer people and their geographical location was not good, they had good equipment and strong combat strength. The 4 of them were not weak, they were all top experts. As a goddess, Zixian's cultivation was the weakest. Zixian moved the divine weapon in her hand and stared at Qin Wentian. She said crisply, "Wentian, shall we cooperate?" Qin Wentian nodded without hesitation. However, Yi Kuan groaned. No one knew what he was thinking. Gu Qingyu stared at Yi Kuan and gripped the divine sword in his hand. He said hoarsely, "Yi Kuan, if you really treat me as your brother, don't act rashly. No matter what grudges we have, we are still a family. We can talk behind closed doors. Even if we can't reach an agreement, we can fight alone. There is no need to let outsiders take advantage of us. Brother Qingyu, since you said we are a family, then we are a family for the time being. Let's cooperate today and talk about other things in the future." Yi Kuan sneered. Gu Qingyu did not trust Yi Kuan anymore. On the surface, they were cooperating, but in his heart, he had to be wary. Kuang Zong slowly approached the people of Demon God Mountain, but always maintained a certain distance. Martial King Ji Tianxin and Sky Overlord wanted to kill Kuang Zong. As long as they killed these people, Kuang Zong would suffer great losses, and Demon God Mountain would not be able to recover. The 2 sides quickly formed an alliance. Only Hua Tianhe's attitude was left. He was the vermilion bird saint's son, and already had the prestige of a saint beast. Behind him, there were 4 powerful vermilion bird descendants. These 5 could decide the direction of the battle. Hua Tianhe looked at the battlefield coldly, as if he had no intention of interfering. He did not want to cooperate with any human. He did not trust them, nor was he willing to cooperate. If he really wanted to cooperate, he would choose the Saint Beast lineage. Let's retreat. Hua Tianhe waved his hand. The 4 vermilion bird descendants soared into the sky. Flames burned the darkness as if it was daytime. Only 4 sides were left. In terms of numbers, Karma Sacred Land and Time Sacred Land obviously had the advantage. Therefore, they did not hesitate to kill Kuang Zong. Boom, 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 boom. 16 people joined forces. Kuang Zong only had 4. Adding the 6 from Demon God Mountain, there was a difference of 5. 5 powerful King Realm elites were enough to turn the situation around. Boom. 15 people were engaged in a chaotic battle. They flew into the sky, burrowed into the ground, and tore apart the darkness. The supreme divine might was vast and mighty. Unparalleled saint-grade secret arts shone for thousands of miles, shaking the heaven and earth. A Qilin's roar resounded through the mountains and rivers. All of them used their full strength. Time and space were distorted. The Sky Overlord controlled the situation above, suppressing the experts until they could not fly. They were suppressed from beginning to end. Jiang Jingtian's long spear pierced through the sky and rushed into the clouds, wanting to kill the Sky Overlord. Gu Qingyu and Mo Li were each fighting against 2 powerful experts. Although they had stabilized the situation, they could not kill the opponent. Everyone was a King Realm expert, and no one could kill them with one sword. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The sword light swept across, cutting open the void. However, the stable void quickly recovered. Ji Tianxin Martial King's power was overwhelming. The Karma Dao exploded. It seemed like everyone's attack and the trajectory of their next move appeared in his sea of consciousness. It was hard for anyone to escape from his control. He alone suppressed Zixian. Even if she used her foundation and locked down the sky with her eyes, she could not trap him. Zixian, you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Since Purple Saint is not willing to kill you, I will kill you for him. Ji Tianxin Martial King's power was like a great rock spreading its wings. Zixian's eyes shone with 2 beams of light. Everywhere it passed, the world's laws would be sealed. However, she could not catch the trajectory of Ji Tianxian martial king. She could only retreat and wait for the right opportunity. On Demon God Mountain, Yi Kuan did not seem to be willing to use his strength. He was always fighting against an expert. His opponent was intimidated by his aura, and his hair stood on end. However, every time he made a move, he could block his attack. However, Ji Tianxian martial king's order did not involve himself. Occasionally, his eyes would sweep past the battle between Jiang Jingtian and the Sky Overlord. It seemed like he wanted to interfere in the battle between the two. The battle here was earth-shattering. It could be clearly sensed from hundreds of miles away. Yi Qinghan also noticed the dazzling radiance here. He brought Medusa and Xianyang with him and quickly approached. Chapter 11:15. Boom. The chaotic battle between over 20 people was already equivalent to 10% of a paramount god's strength. Such explosive power made the experts from the various powers not dare to get too close. The 4 experts from the insane sect held back close to 10 experts. Unfortunately, Yi Kuan still didn't use his full strength. If it wasn't for Ji Tian having other ideas, the insane sect and Devil God Mountain would definitely suffer a great loss. Jiang Jingtian erupted with all his strength, entering a frenzied battle with the Sky Overlord. He almost didn't use any defense and attacked with all his might. The Sky Overlord was torn to pieces by him and then quickly recovered. The Sky Overlord was indeed strong. Even with Jiang Jingtian's strong attacks, he could still maintain the battle situation. The time and space scripture was used to the point of perfection in his hands. Even in this special high-grade space, he could still distort time and space, causing the majority of Jiang Jingtian's strength to dissipate. Martial King Ji Tianxian had an overwhelming advantage in controlling the situation. Zixian's defeat was something that would happen sooner or later. However, he was still struggling bitterly. Qin Wentian was fighting 1 against 2. His figure shuttled through space as fast as lightning, unstoppable. If it wasn't for the fact that the rocks in this space were too hard, he could even pass through them. Boom! Qin Wentian's palm shattered the armor of one of the experts and then kicked him into the ground. A king-level expert fainted on the spot. However, the other one was closing in quickly, so Qin Wentian could only give up on killing him. However, the advantage of the ethereal physique was already displayed. Her combat strength was far superior to some of the godsons. Whoosh! Qin Wentian flashed and appeared in midair, dodging the attacks of the powerful godsons. Seeing that Yi Kuan was still fighting and wasn't willing to put in any effort, he couldn't help but be angry. Dark Knight Demonic God, what the hell are you doing? The opponent is so strong. Yi Kuan casually pushed back his opponent and said indifferently. Qin Wentian was so angry that his body trembled. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan to have such a younger brother. Trash will always be trash. You will never be able to raise your head. Qin Wentian coldly reprimanded. Yi Kuan's eyes flashed as he coldly looked at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian, I'm not your subordinate. So what if you have the ethereal physique? Back then, I, Dark Knight Demonic God, was the strongest under the great demonic god. Watch your mouth. The incorporeal physique, the Dark Knight Devil God, was the right-hand man of the great demonic god. He was the one with the strongest battle prowess and had a very good relationship with Qin Wentian in the past. Unfortunately, it was Yi Kuan who wanted to suppress Qin Wentian. Now, the old members of the demonic god mountain were also divided into 2 groups. Emoli was so angry that he couldn't do anything about it. Perhaps Yi Qinghan's decision back then was right. Yi Kuan was a scourge no matter where he went. It was better to let him go than to kill him. Qin Wentian had no choice but to kill his way towards the enemies again, buying time for the 4 from the Kuang sect. As for the 4 from the demon god mountain, 3 of them were followers of the Dark Knight demonic god's inheritance, so they didn't contribute much. At most, they could only delay one of them. Gu Qingyu and Li Feng were under more and more pressure. They were already 1 against 3. Although they could preserve their lives, it was impossible for them to take the initiative to attack, let alone save Zixian. Zixian's body glowed with golden light. His eyes were overflowing with blood. He wanted to use a forbidden technique to fight to the death with Martial King Ji Tianxian. At the very least, he wanted to take away half of Martial King Ji Tianxian's life. However, at this moment, a shadow appeared in the distance, tearing the darkness apart. Swish, swish, swish. A shadow descended from the sky. He was still 100 miles away from the battlefield. He directly waved his hand, forming a sky-covering palm imprint. It was as if he wanted to imprison the space. Everyone felt a desolate aura enveloping them, as if it wanted to destroy the universe. Everything in the world would fall into desolation and return to the era before the primordial chaos. Heaven Desolation Technique. Yi Qinghan's palm shattered the shackles of time and space. He went straight for Martial King Ji Tianxian's head. Boom, boom. In a split second, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Sand and pebbles flew everywhere. The tiny pebbles became the sharpest divine weapons. You're courting death. Yi Qinghan appeared 50 miles away in the blink of an eye. The giant palm imprint slammed down. Everyone had to scatter to avoid the aftershock of the palm. Everyone was overjoyed. They knew that this was Yi Qinghan's Heaven Desolation Technique attack. Only he could release such a terrifying desolate aura. Time and space flowed. Many experts felt as if they were facing death. Their lives were about to come to an end, and even the sky was about to turn old and desolate. This was especially true for Sky Overlord and Martial King Ji Tianxian. Only people at their level would understand how strong someone was to be able to kill them from a distance of 100 miles. Bang! A palm landed on Martial King Ji Tianxian's head. He couldn't dodge and could only retaliate. Boom! The 2 palms collided. The powerful Martial King Ji Tianxian's body fell from the sky like a kite with a broken string. Yi Qinghan's figure paused. He swept up Xianyang and Medusa and appeared on the battlefield. Yi Kuan's expression changed. He didn't expect to meet Yi Qinghan here. He wasn't afraid of anyone, including the successor of the great demonic god, Mo Li. He was afraid of Gu Qingyu, but he was afraid of his brother. It was respect and fear that came from the bottom of his heart. Yi Qinghan looked around and found Yi Kuan. He noticed that the evil aura in Yi Kuan's eyes was somewhat uncontrollable. A trace of anger flashed in his eyes. Brother, Yi Kuan was much more obedient. However, his arrogance couldn't be concealed. Yi Qinghan stared at Yi Kuan and said sternly, "You didn't take the opportunity to deal with my people. It seems like you've grown up over the years. No matter how much I don't accept you, we're still family. When we get out of the supreme space, I'll still find you for another round. I don't believe that I'll lose to you again," Yi Kuan said firmly. Yi Qinghan shook his head and stepped into the center of the battlefield. Zixian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and wiped the essence blood from the corner of his eyes. He had dodged a calamity. At this moment, Jiang Jingtian started to counterattack aggressively. However, the Sky Overlord had the intention to retreat. At this moment, they no longer had the advantage in numbers. If they continued to fight, they would all die. However, Martial King Ji Tianxian was targeted by Yi Qinghan. He crushed the rocks under his feet and punched out. Boom, boom, boom. Yi Qinghan's punch shattered the space and appeared in front of Martial King Ji Tianxian. "You're dead," Yi Qinghan said domineeringly. "That's not necessarily true." Martial King Ji Tianxian swallowed a drop of diluted divine energy. Instantly, his explosive strength increased by more than 10 times. He swept his leg and kicked towards Yi Qinghan's head. Close combat was Yi Qinghan's advantage. He retreated and turned his fist into a claw. He leaned his body and grabbed Martial King Jitianshan's long leg. The terrifying impact caused the golden armor to flutter. However, he retracted his left leg and used his right hand to throw Martial King Jitianshan away. Bang! Yi Qinghan twisted his leg and rushed out. He kicked Martial King Jitianshan's chest and sent him crashing into the mountain peak. His divine body was almost shattered. Martial King Jitianshan spat out a mouthful of essence blood and rolled down from the mountain peak. He looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. "I said you're dead." Yi Qinghan raised his hand and was about to suppress Martial King Jitianshan. The surrounding experts felt their limbs turn cold. Even Li Feng and the rest felt that Yi Qinghan's battle strength was a little too strong. Chapter 11:16. Yi Qinghan raised his hand, and the power of the world rose with a wave of his hand. It was like a supreme will that could suppress all living things. Martial King Jitianshan was shocked. He directly swallowed a drop of pure supreme godly power. The aura of karma covered the sky, and his figure disappeared as if all karma had appeared. Shwa! Martial King Jitianshan appeared dozens of meters behind Yi Qinghan with a golden sword in his hand. The Karma Tao formed a golden path to the heavens. The supreme godly power was abnormally dense, circulating around his body. His golden body emitted an oppressive golden light, as if a true supreme god had appeared. The foundation of a supreme holy ground had appeared. This was the difference between them and the top elite. They could still explode with their foundation and display their supreme godly might. They could even erupt with supreme godly power. "I'm dead for sure? Yi Qinghan. Today I'll kill you." Martial King Jitianshan grinned coldly, his killing intent soaring to the sky. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly. His right foot slipped and the sand and stones flew. After the heaven desolation technique's starting stance, the desolate aura of heaven and earth gathered, and Berserk appeared in his hand. The power of desolation attached to Berserk, and the saber light became even more soul-stealing. The sharp auras collided, and no one dared to stand within 1,000 meters. Even Sky Overlord hid far away, waiting for an opportunity to escape. The 4 from the Karma Sacred Land and the 6 from the Spacetime Sacred Land were all blocked off by the Insane Sect and Demon God Mountain. Their numbers were about the same, and with Jitian's demon spirit still hoping that Yi Qinghan would kill Jitianshan Martial King, Blue Sky Overlord and the others were at an even greater disadvantage. A sharp light flashed in Jitian's eyes. He couldn't wait for Yi Qinghan to kill King Shenwu. Once King Shenwu died, his supreme source energy would be distributed to the other god sons of the Karma Holy Land. She would then replace King Shenwu and become the strongest goddess of the Karma Holy Land. After killing the other god sons and goddesses, she would be able to gather the karma over God's source energy and become a paramount god. She would be invincible in the same realm. Yi Qinghan obviously wouldn't disappoint her. However, what he wanted to cultivate wasn't Jitian, but Jitianling as a puppet. Boom! Yi Qinghan took a step forward, and the hard stones under his feet were crushed. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan slashed his saber towards Martial King Jitianshan. His body was like a rainbow sword, and the stone beneath his feet was directly shattered. Saber chi accompanied by the terrifying power of desolates cut open the space. Martial King Jitianshan sneered arrogantly. Ding! The golden sword was swift and fierce, slicing through space as it slashed towards Zhong Kuang. Supreme God Force poured out, and Zhong Kuang's entire body burned. A streak of desolation energy collided with the Supreme God Force, causing the astral river to surge. Gravel flew up into the sky, shooting into the distant mountain peak. The mountain peak was pierced through. Boom! Yi Qinghan's power reached its peak. The veins on his body bulged as he slammed his saber against the golden sword. The sound of the collision was ear-piercing. The power of desolation crushed Ji Tianxin, Martial King's supreme god force, with overwhelming dominance. Bang! Thud! Thud! Martial King Ji Tianxin's arms went numb, and his legs involuntarily took a few steps back. His legs were almost broken. Ah! Martial King Ji Tianxin screamed miserably. He couldn't accept that even after using all his trump cards, he still couldn't contend against Yi Qinghan. His supreme god force actually lost to the opponent's power of desolation. Die! Yi Qinghan didn't retreat. Instead, he advanced. The moment the tip of his feet touched the ground, he fiercely stomped on the ground and soared into the sky. He raised his saber and once again sliced through space, wanting to kill Martial King Ji Tianxin. Whoosh! The desolation light screen descended from the sky. Yi Qinghan transformed into a great rock and swooped down. Borrowing the power of heaven and earth, Martial King Ji Tianxin couldn't escape. He could only forcefully resist. Clang! Boom! Boom! After a crisp sound, Martial King Ji Tianxin's golden sword bent and changed shape. Yi Qinghan ruthlessly pressed down, and Martial King Ji Tianxin's knees crashed onto the ground. His kneecaps smashed into the ground, shattering the ground and shattering the bones in his legs. Pooh! Ah! Martial King Ji Tianxin's eyes almost popped out. He knelt on the ground and raised his sword to resist. His body was bent under the pressure. His supreme god force poured out in torrents, but he still couldn't block Yi Qinghan's 7-feet-long saber and the strength of his arms. Sky Overlord looked at Yi Qinghan in horror and whispered hoarsely, "How is this possible?" He used all his trump cards. Yi Qinghan's strength was indeed too terrifying. The 9-revolution Chaos Dao body was almost completed, and he also had the dragon blood and dragon physique. Just this body alone was a peak giant god. The power of desolation was the power system of the Lord of Desolation. Naturally, it wouldn't lose to the supreme god force. Now that he was suppressing Martial King Ji Tianxin, it wasn't a big deal. Moreover, Martial King Ji Tianxin was far from being on par with the top-tier god sons. Yi Qinghan looked down at Martial King Ji Tianxin, who was kneeling in front of him. He lifted his leg and kicked right at Martial King Ji Tianxin's chest. Bang! Pooh! Martial King Ji Tianxin's back bulged and his chest caved in. His internal organs were almost crushed by the kick. His body flew backward and slammed into a mountain rock. He fell to the ground and didn't have a chance to fight back. I said, "You're dead for sure. You wasted a drop of supreme god force for nothing. In the end, you didn't even use 10% of its power." Yi Qinghan shook his head in pity. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Yi Qinghan stepped towards Martial King Ji Tianxin. He crushed his powerful body with a stomp and chopped off his head with a slash. His godhead shattered on the spot, and a top-tier god's son died. At the moment of his death, the supreme source dissipated, splitting into several parts and disappearing in the air. The largest part directly rushed into Ji Tianxin's sea of consciousness. His aura changed drastically, and his battle strength increased by more than a few times. Yi Qinghan snatched the yin-yang ring from Martial King Ji Tianxin's hand. After recognizing it as its owner, he found that there was still a drop of supreme god force inside. Moreover, it was very pure. As for the resources inside, he naturally took all of them. Sky Overlord's scalp went numb. He narrowed his eyes and stared at Yi Qinghan as he continuously retreated. "Since you're already here, why are you so eager to leave? Leave the gifts behind before you leave," Yi Qinghan said indifferently. Sky Overlord carried a bag on his back. It was clearly filled with supreme godstones. There were close to 20 of them. Ji Tianxin also had a bag on his back, which was even more than his. The two of them had at least 50 of them. This was something that all of them gathered together. Sky Overlord naturally wasn't willing to hand it over. This was 20 points. If he gave it to Yi Qinghan, where would he find so many supreme godstones? Ji Tianxian frowned and looked at Jiang Jingtian, hoping that he would say something. After all, she also wanted to make a contribution so that her family could nurture her. Yi Qinghan saw Ji Tianxian's little movements and looked at Jiang Jingtian suspiciously. He secretly knew what was going on and said to Sky Overlord, "You won't be able to escape. If you don't want to leave behind the supreme godstones, the few of you will meet up with Martial King Ji Tianxian in hell." Sky Overlord was being stared at by Jiang Jingtian and didn't have any chance to escape. Now that Yi Qinghan was here, there was even less of a chance. He could only choose to compromise. "If we leave behind the supreme godstones, you will let us go?" Sky Overlord frowned and asked. Yi Qinghan shrugged and smiled, "Of course. Because I still have business to discuss with you." The supreme godstones that they snatched naturally had to be sold. Otherwise, what was the point of having so many supreme godstones? It was useless. Chapter 11:17. The Sky Overlord had no choice but to give up more than 20 supreme god stones and then fled the battlefield with his followers. Only Ji Tian and the 4 elite experts were left. At this moment, they were all panicking. Their individual combat strength was indeed strong, but it also depended on who their opponent was. If it was Yi Qinghan, they might not be able to handle him even if there were 3 to 5 of them. Ji Tian stared at Jiang Jingtian, hoping that he would say something. Jiang Jingtian was also in a difficult position. If it wasn't for Ji Tian going easy on them, Kuang Zong probably wouldn't have lasted until now. However, it wasn't his style to speak for the enemy. "This fellow Taoist helped us just now," Jiang Jingtian helplessly said to Yi Qinghan. "How about we leave half for them?" Yi Qinghan was very surprised. He didn't expect this woman to help Kuang Zong. He curiously asked with a teasing tone, "Why did you help Kuang Zong? Or rather, why did you help Brother Jingtian? Did you take a liking to him?" Ji Tian's mouth twitched. He held the long whip and took a few steps back, maintaining a very strong distance from Yi Qinghan. He said in a crisp voice, "Nothing. I just wanted to do something good for Kuang Zong, and also to express my goodwill to Jiang Jingtian." Yi Qinghan looked at Ji Tian. There was even a hint of joy in her eyes. It seemed that she didn't hate him for killing Martial King Ji Tian at all. He frowned and asked, "You don't seem to hate me for killing a supreme expert of your sacred ground. Instead, you seem very happy? Why should I hate him? If it wasn't for him playing tricks, he wouldn't have gotten the position of a peak god's son. It would have been my brother, Ji Tian Ba Huang. I've wanted to kill him for a long time, but I didn't have the chance. I still have to thank you for killing him for me," Ji Tian explained. Then, he took several steps back and stood in front of the 4 powerhouses. He coldly said, "However, these 4 brothers are followers of my Karma Holy Lands. They are my brothers. If you dare to kill them, we will become enemies." It turned out that there was a personal grudge. Yi Qinghan suddenly understood and nodded his head. He indifferently glanced at the 4 experts behind Ji Tian and coldly said, "Remember, your lives were saved by this lady goddess. Scram. The next time you go against me, you won't be so lucky." Yi Qinghan's eyes flickered as he secretly transmitted a message to Ji Tian. "If Miss wants to secure the position of the Holy Lord of the Karma Holy Ground, why don't you come to my mad sect in a few days? Perhaps we can cooperate." Ji Tian didn't respond. He didn't even show the slightest bit of emotion as he protected the 4 elite kings and slowly left the battlefield. Not long after, outside the battlefield, the 4 elite kings expressed their gratitude to Ji Tian. They were all willing to pledge their loyalty to her and help her become the next Holy Lord of the Supreme Holy Land, assisting her to become a paramount god. This was the favor that Yi Qinghan had given her. The 4 elite kings would become 4 future elders and follow the family head of a force. Their value was enormous. Although Ji Tian was happy in his heart, he didn't show it. His intelligence was far above Ji Tianlingkong's. This was also the reason why Yi Qinghan chose to cooperate with him. Outside the space, the Holy Lord of the Karma Holy Land was enraged as he saw Ji Tianshen's life token turn to dust. He wanted nothing more than to rush into the space to find the murderer. However, he was blocked by the other Holy Lords because no one knew who killed Ji Tianshen. The other Holy Lords and Elders were also surprised. Logically speaking, such a battle shouldn't have killed a peak divine son of a holy land. Why would Ji Tianshen die? If he died, it meant that the other divine sons of the other holy lands had also fallen. Either it was a siege or some divine son was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. He had the strength to kill a divine son of the same level. Soon, someone came to a conclusion. The mad sect was still alive. This aroused the anger and unwillingness of many holy lands. The Supreme Holy Land only had 3 people. Up until now, only Nangong Aoshua's life token had dimmed for half a day. But now it had already recovered. Nangong Batian was very excited. He felt that cooperating with the mad sect was a wise choice. They had a chance to seize the entrance to the Wangu Yuntian, and the 3 young elites could return safely. The life tokens were shattered, and there were many casualties. The expressions of the Holy Lands weren't good. If they knew that their divine sons didn't have as many supreme immortal stones as Yi Qinghan, they would probably vomit blood from anger. Yi Qinghan looked at Yi Kuan. That pair of evil eyes made people uncomfortable. He couldn't imagine how that silk pants from back then had become like this. To cultivate to this level, he must have suffered a lot. Yi Qinghan guessed that the depths of his heart must be even more twisted and dark. Gulp. Yi Kuan swallowed a mouthful of saliva and pretended to be fearless as he looked at Yi Qinghan. His fingers moved restlessly. It was clear that he was still extremely afraid of Yi Qinghan. The others were silent. They didn't want to interfere with the matters between the 2 brothers. Sai, you still don't understand why I banished you. Let's go. Yi Qinghan sighed after a long time and waved his hand. I've always understood. See you on the stage. I'll let you know that I can also be undefeated. Yi Kuan sneered and waved his hand. The 4 people behind him all left. Qin Wentian looked at Yi Qinghan and saw the sadness in his eyes. He didn't say anything and turned to leave. Half of the mad sect had gathered, and only Emperor Yi, Di Longtian, and the others hadn't appeared yet. Maintain a distance of 30 li. We'll push through the higher space and search for the brothers of the mad sect. If we find the people of the Holy Lands, we'll bring them too. Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Soon, the battle formation was set. Yi Qinghan was in the middle, ready to support the 2 sides at any time. Li Feng and Jiang Jingtian guarded the 2 sides, Gu Qingyu the left and Zixian the right. Their battle strength was very balanced. 30 li was just a matter of a moment for them. The 7 experts worked together and moved forward in a carpet style. Because of the strength of the mad sect, even if some powers gathered more than 10 experts, they didn't dare to attack carelessly. Even Daotian Xiongfei, who was at the peak of his power, had no choice but to walk past Yi Qinghan. However, the battle intent in their eyes was very high. If they were to fight one-on-one on the stage, it would definitely be an earth-shattering battle. Yan Yunbei led Nangong Aoshua through the bushes. Her clothes were all torn, revealing her creamy skin. Yan Yunbei had no choice but to take off his golden armor to cover her. Along the way, Nangong Aoshua admired this taciturn handsome man more and more. Her eyes were filled with admiration. Yan Yunbei, on the other hand, was indifferent and didn't feel much. He focused on finding a way out and hiding in the bushes. From a cliff not far away, He found Yi Qinghan and the others were searching for the members of the mad sect. Since they weren't far away, he took Nangong Aoshue and sped forward. After about half a day, they finally met up. Chapter 11-18. Time passed even faster on the second day. The competition for the supreme divine stones had reached its climax, and people were killed at every turn. Some people had no choice but to abandon the divine stones and flee in order to save their lives. Emperor Yi rode the white tiger descendant for a day and night without making a move. On the second day, he sat upright and played the guqin. The white tiger descendant was intoxicated by the music, and his blood energy became stronger and stronger, showing signs of evolution. The melodious music of the guqin spread out, affecting the blood energy of the experts within 1,000 miles. They danced along with the music, and their battle intent became stronger and stronger. It was as if they had entered a state of enlightenment. Their spiritual awareness was clear, and their understanding of martial arts was rapidly improving. Thus, many people couldn't help but approach. They knew that the music came from Emperor Yi, but they still wanted to get closer and take advantage of it. They thought that as long as they didn't get too close, Emperor Yi wouldn't be able to catch up. But when they got within 100 miles, their hearts didn't want to get closer, but their bodies were very honest. The closer they got to Emperor Yi, the greater the benefits. Thus, the temptation was limitless. Sing, sing, sing. The crisp and melodious sound of the guqin reverberated through the air for thousands of miles without dissipating. The heavenly melody of the guqin rushed into the depths of the overlord's consciousness. It was as if they had fallen into a dreamland, a beautiful dream that Ren Huangyi had woven for them. More and more experts gathered around the white tiger descendant. Xia Ziluo heard Emperor Ye's music, and also quickly approached with Di Longtian on her back. Many experts were carrying the supreme divine stones on their backs. When they were more than 10 miles away from Emperor Yi, they couldn't control themselves and had completely entered Emperor Ye's dream. Emperor Yi gently played the divine guqin, and it was similar to Zixian's forbidden technique. Entering dream technique. Soul, spirit, enter my dream. Wind, moon, guide me. All living things, enter my dream. There's no struggle, only my dream. Everyone threw down the supreme divine stones and swept away the white tiger descendant one by one, leaving nothing behind. Soon, Emperor Yi had collected more than 100 divine stones by himself. More than 30 people had been robbed. It involved almost everyone from the Holy Land. By the time they came to their senses, Ren Huangyi had already succeeded. Everyone was an overlord of a region and a group of heroes. How could they swallow this insult? They all glared at Ren Huangyi and drew their swords. Emperor Yi stood with his zither in his arms. His white robes fluttered in the wind, making him look like a delicate loli. He looked at the crowd with his big, watery eyes. There wasn't much killing intent in his eyes, and he said calmly, "If I wanted to kill you all, I would have done so just now. Don't put up any pointless resistance. I've already gotten what I wanted, and I don't want to kill anyone. Leave? I'm just afraid that even if you have the life to take these divine stones, you won't be alive to use them." Whoosh! A figure rushed over from the end of the void. The aura of primal chaos covered the sky and covered the earth. It was like the Milky Way pouring down, covering 100 miles. The sky was dark and a powerful primal chaos aura appeared in front of everyone. His body was bathed in primal chaos, and his face was blurry. His face could not be seen clearly, but everyone knew who he was. Chaotic Son of God. Ji Wuhan. Emperor Yi did not know who Ji Wuhan was, nor did he know how strong his cultivation was. However, at least he knew that Ji Wuhan could not defeat him. Therefore, he shrugged and said calmly, "If I have the life to take them, I will naturally have the life to use them. If you think you have the ability to take them, I don't mind playing with you for a while." The chaotic son of God had never seen such an arrogant little girl. She looked so weak, but she dared to clamor at him. "Do you know who I am?" Ji Woohan's aura exploded as he asked in a dignified manner. "I don't know, but it doesn't matter. As long as you're not a supreme god, I don't care about you," Emperor Yi said indifferently. Ji Woohan's aura stagnated. His fingers trembled, and a primal chaos wheel appeared in his hand. The runes on it were filled with primal chaos light. It was as if he was the primal chaos, the son of chaos. Emperor Ye's jade-like hands pressed lightly on the 9 strings of the zither. She could erupt with terrifying combat strength at any time. The dragon aura on her body swept up the momentum of heaven and earth. Half of the primal chaos aura was snatched away by her. Ji Woohan suddenly felt that he had lost control of the primal chaos aura, and the primal chaos energy in his body became inexplicably restless. The shadow of the primal chaos dragon coiled around Emperor Ye's back. It was as if a real dragon had appeared, intimidating thousands of miles away. The overlords in all directions were shocked and retreated. The chaotic son of God frowned. He realized that Emperor Yi was not easy to deal with, so he said firmly, "We'll split it in half. I won't make things difficult for you." Emperor Yi was disdainful. Would he spit out the treasures he had taken? This was not the character of the arrogant sect. "Go play somewhere else. Don't think that I won't dare to make a move. I just don't want others to take advantage of me," Emperor Yi refused without hesitation. "Then you're forcing me to make a move," Ji Woohan said coldly. Emperor Yi did not say anything. Instead, he made a move. His 5 fingers plucked the zither strings, and the melody turned into a weapon. It appeared invisible and suddenly disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already attacking Ji Woohan's face. Whoosh! The soul-stealing sound blade was as fast as lightning and extremely sharp. It was enough to cut through the defense of a son of God. Ji Woohan's body twisted as he dodged. The primal chaos compass in his hand suddenly shot out primal chaos light, drowning everything in front of him. When the sound blade touched it, it dissipated into primal chaos. A circle of sharp blades appeared around the compass, slicing through the void. Emperor Ye's attack was directly shattered by the blade energy. It was enough to see how sharp it was. This primal chaos compass was a divine weapon that was highly modeled after an overgod artifact. It was second only to an overgod artifact, and it had taken the primal chaos holy land millions of years to create. It was the culmination of the efforts of several generations. It was powerful, and it did not take much effort to tear apart a golden armor. "Emperor Yi, I didn't want to fight with you. Unfortunately, you've disappointed me," Ji Woohan shouted fiercely. The compass in his hand spun at high speed, and the nearby sand and stones flew into the air to attack the sound blade. Each time, it could cancel out Emperor Ye's attack. Emperor Yi jumped off the white tiger's back, patted its thigh, and said softly, "Go 30 miles away and wait for me." Roar! The white tiger's descendant hesitated for a moment before quickly leaving the battlefield. Its strength was clearly not enough to interfere in the battle between Emperor Yi and Ji Woohan. Roar! Half of Emperor Ye's blood energy transformed into a primal chaos dragon that stretched for thousands of miles. His figure flashed, and he stood proudly on the dragon's head. He looked down at Ji Woohan and said domineeringly, "The arrogant sect can steal people, but it has never been stolen by others. So what if you're a saint or deity of a holy land? Anyone who dares to steal from me will have to pay the price. I'd like to see how much essence you've inherited from the primal chaos dragon." Swish! Ji Woohan held the compass and charged into the void, dodging the dragon's tail attack. He went straight for Emperor Yi, who was on the dragon's head. Boom! 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 The majestic melody caused the blood energy to become restless. The rich Guqin music combined with the momentum of heaven and earth appeared abnormally majestic and vast. The Guqin music drowned out space and enveloped Ji Wuhan. Sound blades appeared out of nowhere, occasionally cutting his clothes. Most of the attacks were blocked by him. Swish! Ji Wuhan waved his hand, and the compass drew an arc in the air. It was as fast as lightning as it charged toward Emperor Ye's body. Buzz! Buzz! Boom! 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 Emperor Ye's 10 fingers quickly strummed the Guqin strings, sending out powerful attacks toward the compass in an attempt to force it back. However, the compass's speed was extremely fast, and it always dodged the Guqin music's attacks. It was getting closer and closer to Emperor Yi. Chapter 11:19. 1. Emperor Yi plucked at the strings of the Guqin with his 10 fingers and pushed them forward fiercely, pressing the strings in reverse. A wave of melodic qi filled the sky and formed a gigantic chaotic dragon. It was vivid and lifelike, and its might overflowed into the sky. It opened its mouth and enveloped the compass. Ji Wuhan felt that the compass could tear this attack apart, so he charged forward. However, when the compass was controlled by the dragon's teeth, he realized that his divine power was actually on par with Emperor Ye's. He could not break free from the dragon's restraint. Boom! The dragon beneath Emperor Yi swung its tail and attacked Ji Wuhan's body. The speed at which his fingers plucked the strings of the Guqin was extremely fast. The sound blades formed by the rhythmic sorcery swept through the air, forcing Ji Wuhan to flee frantically. He always managed to dodge the attack when it was just a hair's breadth away. His battle robe was cut open, and he was forced to retreat. Chaos reappears, Nirvana 10 directions. Boom! Ji Wuhan mobilized the primal chaos 10 directions. A drop of diluted primal chaos supreme divine power rushed into his body. It then turned into usable primal chaos divine power and poured out, forming an even larger primal chaos compass in front of him. In an instant, the world rumbled as the sound blades touched the primal chaos compass. The sound blades shattered and the compass dimmed. Ji Wuhan still could not control the situation and retreated. Hiss! 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 The sound of space shattering resounded for thousands of miles. The battle here shook half of the supreme space. Primal chaos scripture, all things return to origin. Ji Wuhan's eyes shone brightly as golden light appeared in his body. The phantom of the compass rushed out of his body and imprinted itself on the giant primal chaos compass in front of him. Its aura suddenly increased, and all the power in front of the compass returned to nothingness and was added to the compass. Ji Wuhan's aura suddenly increased, and the situation turned around. He grabbed the compass and danced with the river. The space and rocks within a radius of several miles began to shatter. The supreme divine power appeared for the first time. It was at least 1% of a supreme god's power. 10,000 arrows returned to 1. Azure Dragon goes to sea. Emperor Ye's figure suddenly rose, and the primal chaos supreme divine Guqin turned into a divine bow. The divine power in his body was instantly exhausted, and it turned into an Azure Dragon divine arrow. Creak creak, the ultimate colossus was almost torn apart. Emperor Ye's dragon might spread for thousands of kilometers, as if the Supreme Being had appeared and looked down on all living beings, suppressing more than half of the supreme space. The dragon god's arrow was formed. The arrowhead trembled slightly and spread out millions of kilometers. Even the experts far away at the end looked at the depths of the space in shock. In the blink of an eye, Azure Dragon emerging from the sea collided with myriad creation returning. The Azure Dragon emerging from the sea could destroy the world with an unstoppable momentum. A large hole appeared in the chaos compass, and Ji Wuhan was sent flying with a scream. Whoosh! As Ji Wuhan flew backwards, he grabbed the pseudo-over-god artifact, the primordial chaos compass. His divine power once more poured out, using up all of the primordial chaos divine power in his body. The compass spun at high speed, wildly charging towards the azure dragon god arrow. Buzz buzz buzz. The compass and divine arrow collided at least 1,000,000 times in an instant. A black hole vortex appeared in the supreme space, almost tearing the space here apart. The two of them fell to the ground, desperately mobilizing their souls to control their peak attack. Emperor Ye's round eyes shone with divine light. He did not retreat an inch and even took the initiative to move forward. The divine arrow suppressed the compass, and the supreme godhead released a dazzling golden light that formed a primordial chaos dragon. It communicated with the myriad daos of the heavens, causing the world to rumble. Only now did Ji Wuhan realize that he had kicked an iron plate. This time, not only did he not get the Supreme Godstone, but he had also wasted a drop of diluted Supreme God power. Even if he escaped this time, his divine power would be exhausted, and he would need a lot of time to recover. It would be difficult for him to even get 10 points from this operation. Bam bam bam! Ji Wuhan's feet crushed rocks as he frowned. Veins popped out all over his body, and his face was flushed red. He faced Emperor Yi with equal harshness. Mo Li, who was countless kilometers away, looked up in shock at the azure dragon and the primordial chaos compass colliding in the distant sky. It was like a divine arrow that wanted to destroy the blazing sun. That kind of palpitating fear shocked him. Can I block this azure dragon divine arrow? At the same time, Mo Li, Wu Zulong, Dao Tianxiong Fei, and other super-existences were all asking themselves, how could they not be shocked by the second-in-command of the insane sect to such an extent? At this moment, Xia Ziluo was rushing towards the battlefield with the unconscious Di Longtian on her back. She was as fast as lightning because she knew that Emperor Yi was fighting. Otherwise, she would not have foolishly carried the unconscious Di Longtian to such a dangerous place. Ji Wuhan also sensed a powerful aura rushing towards this place without hesitation. He suspected that it was someone from the insane sect and did not dare to delay any longer. He took the initiative to withdraw the compass and fled into the distance, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Emperor Yi was extremely tired. It was very difficult to fight against a true top-level divine son and saint son. They were all inheritors of the paramount god, and there was not much difference between them. This was especially true for experts with only one inheritance, such as Emperor Yi, Dao Tianxiong Fei, Hua Tianhe, and the chaotic divine son. It was possible for both sides to be injured, but it was almost unrealistic to want to kill the other side. At this moment, Xia Ziluo teleported a few times and appeared beside Emperor Yi. When Emperor Yi saw that it was Xia Ziluo, the tension in his heart relaxed and he immediately sat down on the ground. Xia Ziluo put Di Longtian on the ground and quickly said, "You repair first, I'll defend." Emperor Ye's face was pale. He nodded and took out a golden pill from his yin and yang ring and swallowed it. Divine power filled his body, and a divine light shone in all directions. The shock waves from the battle dispersed, and the descendant of the white tiger ran back, arousing Xia Ziluo's vigilance. Just as she was about to attack, she saw that the huge white tiger was lying in front of her and not moving, looking at Emperor Yi with reverence. Xia Ziluo frowned, but since the descendant of the white tiger didn't move, she didn't continue to attack. Instead, she waited for Emperor Yi to wake up. However, in the distance, a few terrifying auras were rushing over. Clearly, they wanted to take advantage of the situation. Xia Ziluo clenched the Hell reincarnation diagram, her eyes vigilant. She didn't dare to be careless. If they were attacked by the enemy this time, the insane sect would lose 3 experts. After an incense stick's worth of time, Emperor Yi had recovered half of his strength. The second golden pill entered his body, and he was still recovering rapidly. The mark on Di Longtian's forehead changed faster and faster, and the divine power in his body was sucked dry. The azure dragon possessed him, and the dragon roared. A powerful supreme aura spread out for thousands of miles, shocking the experts who were rushing over. Another supreme aura had appeared, and it would be difficult to take advantage of the situation. However, Emperor Ye's aura was sometimes strong and sometimes weak, and it attracted the attention of the group. Although they had wasted some time and were now rushing over, Emperor Yi had recovered more than half of his strength by now. In the distance, Yi Qinghan gave up on the main group and merged with the little chaos beast. He spread his wings and flew in the direction of Emperor Yi without caring about the cost. The long blade in his hand continuously slashed the void, and he crossed thousands of miles in an instant. Whoever dared to block his path would be cut down. 3 ordinary kings unintentionally blocked his path, and they were all implicated and killed. Dao Tianxiong Fei, Mo Li Hua Tianhe, and the other experts were all rushing over, hoping to kill the insane sex experts. They were rushing over from all directions at the same speed. Now it was a matter of who was faster. Yi Qinghan caught up from behind, and it was almost as if he had teleported. The figure in front of him was still thousands of miles away, and in the next second, he appeared thousands of miles away. Chapter 11:20. In the supreme space, the Overlord's blood dyed the sky red. A king had fallen, and heaven and earth rumbled. More than 10 figures moved as fast as lightning, riding the wind and breaking the waves, turning into rainbows that traversed the space. One of the wind thunder beasts was even faster. It was the subordinate of the serpent, and it was the closest to Xia Ziluo and Emperor Yi. Whoosh, a black figure sped ahead, and the wind thunder beast appeared in Xia Ziluo's line of sight. Before it could stabilize itself, it suddenly found that the sky was distorted, and it was difficult to move. Xia Ziluo mobilized his divine power and crushed the sky. The giant hand that covered the sky shattered the shackles and grabbed at the wind thunder beast's body. The wind thunder beast looked like lightning. Black and white intersected, and it controlled the wind and thunder of the world. Thunder blasted toward the giant hand, and wind blades tore the space apart. Although the supreme space was stable, it was collapsing at this moment, but it quickly recovered. Whoosh! The Hell's reincarnation diagram turned into a giant diagram that covered the sky. It wanted to sweep away everything in the world, and it directly pressed down on the wind thunder beast. A chaotic treasure was extremely powerful. In the hands of a great emperor, its power was completely different from in the hands of Xia Ziluo. Boom! A divine arrow pierced through the galaxy, shattering Xia Ziluo's heaven-suppressing technique, and directly collided with the Hell's reincarnation diagram. Hell appeared, and reincarnation swallowed the arrow. Before Dao Tianxiangfei arrived, the arrow had already arrived. The wind thunder beast was waiting for the opportunity to kill Emperor Yi, but the descendant of the white tiger roared and waved his giant palm at the wind thunder beast. Boom! 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 The descendant of the white tiger didn't have a pure bloodline, but it was still a supreme bloodline after all. It actually blocked the wind thunder beast and separated upon contact. Roar! The descendant of the white tiger stood in front of Emperor Yi and bared his teeth, warning the wind thunder beast. Dao Tianxiangfei descended, his white robes fluttering. He stood on the wind with the sky splitter divine bow in his hand. Seeing that Emperor Yi was recovering from his injuries, he waved his hand and grabbed a sky splitter divine arrow. This was a real divine arrow, not an illusion of divine power. Its power could destroy the world. At this moment, Hua Tianhe rushed over, his vermilion bird divine fire and his aura. Their goal was almost the same, which was to kill the cultivator. However, they were also wary of each other, so Dao Tianxiong Fei didn't dare to attack recklessly. They actually stopped moving. Whoosh! Mo Li's appearance with the demonic god's spear in hand made the situation even weirder. A faintly discernible sword light flashed through space, blocking the vision of everyone. When they opened their eyes again, they saw a faintly discernible figure standing not far away from Emperor Yi. The tip of the figure's feet touched the ground, but it didn't touch the ground. His handsome face was filled with battle intent. His long hair fluttered in the wind, and his aura soared to the heavens. He was none other than the peak-level godchild of the supreme holy ground, Nangong Yunlan, who, the Kuang sect finally had a powerful teammate. Xia Ziluo couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Then, a figure in purple robes appeared in the middle of the battlefield. It was Zixing from the Z clan. His face was expressionless. No one knew what he was thinking. The war was on the verge of breaking out, and it was very likely that it would descend into chaos. This was something that no one wanted to see, because no one knew who would play dirty tricks behind the scenes. No one trusted each other, and killing as many as they could was still one of them. How could there be any benevolence, righteousness, or morality to speak of? The experts arrived almost at the same time. In the blink of an eye, 3 more experts had arrived. They were Emperor Xianyuan, the son of Wind, Feng Qingshan, and the son of White Tiger. Almost all the top experts had arrived. At least half of them had arrived. Now, everyone was in an even more difficult situation. They had bought time for Yi Qinghan, and also bought a chance for Emperor Yi. Boom! A ruthless blade aura tore through the void, almost cutting the earth in half. Yi Qinghan stepped forward forcefully and appeared in front of Emperor Yi. He looked at the crowd that was closing in on him, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sinister smile. "You all are in such a good mood. You actually gathered here. Could it be that you want to besiege me?" Yi Qinghan asked indifferently. Mo Li's aura stagnated. He knew that he had missed the best opportunity, so he said, "The Kuang sect and the Demon God Mountain have temporarily formed an alliance. I naturally came to protect my teammate." Yi Qinghan laughed and cupped his fist. "Thank you, Taoist Mo Li. I can't thank you enough." Many people did not want to be outdone. They did not speak, but their eyes were glowing. They seemed to be searching for the son of chaos. This guy did not have that many helpers. This was the best opportunity to kill him. "Everyone, please leave," Yi Qinghan said indifferently. However, no one moved. They seemed to be looking for an opportunity. Yi Qinghan's aura changed. He waved his hand, and the power of desolation swept through the supreme space. Sand and pebbles flew, and his aura shattered the space. At this moment, he was like a god of war looking down on all life. Just his aura alone was enough to intimidate the overlords. The imprint of the Great Wasteland's monument was restless. It supported Yi Qinghan's aura, wanting to destroy time and space. Mo Li did not want to be enemies with Yi Qinghan at this moment, so he took the initiative to leave. They were teammates, so no one gossiped. Once Mo Li left, Hua Tianhe naturally did not stay. Sacred beasts were not interested in humans. With so many human experts gathered here, what else could he do? In any case, he would not join forces with a human to fight another human. Everyone hesitated. The son of chaos, Ji Wuhan, must have lost his mind. He fought against Emperor Yi at this moment and caused both sides to suffer. He was probably running around like a dog, looking for a place to recover. Once he was discovered by an expert of the same level, he would not even have a chance to escape. They did not want to die. They did not want to suffer another loss with Yi Qinghan, which would only benefit others. They all left the battlefield, preparing to find another opportunity. Yi Qinghan waved his hand, and the overlords retreated. Only Xia Ziluo, the White Tiger's descendant, and Nangong Yunlan were left. Yi Qinghan turned to look at Di Longtian. He found that the divine power in his body was extremely chaotic, and his blood was flowing non-stop. He could not help but frown. He raised his hand and grabbed Di Longtian. He found that his imprint was actually the imprint of the Azure Dragon Overgod. The Overgod spark was slowly gathering. How can this be? If he is the inheritor of the Azure Dragon Overgod, then what is going on with the Azure Dragon Saint Child? Yi Qinghan murmured. Nangong Yunlan was also quite shocked. It was obviously impossible for two supreme inheritors to appear. There had to be strong ones and weak ones. Di Longtian's cultivation was obviously not weak, and the Azure Dragon Saint Child's strength was even more obvious. Who was the inheritor chosen by the Azure Dragon Overgod? Yi Qinghan did not know much about supreme inheritances. He was naturally happy that Di Longtian had grown to become the inheritor of the Azure Dragon Overgod. At least Di Shang's painstaking nurturing had not been wasted. Emperor Yi had recovered for about 3 hours. His strength had returned to peak condition. Now that he stood up, his battle power had increased by a lot. A battle between experts of the same level was indeed extraordinary. The White Tiger's descendant followed Emperor Yi closely, as if it was afraid that he would lose sight of it. Even when Emperor Yi asked it to leave, it was unwilling to leave. It seemed that it wanted to follow Emperor Yi and use the zither music to improve its bloodline. The descendant of a holy beast was indeed intelligent. Even if its bloodline was not pure, it was still smarter than the average person. Yi Qinghan looked around and found that the beast-tamer factions Xianyuan Lu and the insane sects Nye Tian had not gathered yet. There was also no trace of Nangong Yunao from the Holy Land. He could not help but frown. Let's gather everyone first. We have enough Supreme Godstones, so there's no need to fight anymore. Life is the most important thing, Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. Thank you, Lord Wuxin, for flashing red twice. Chapter 11:21. In the southwest of the space, Nangong Yunao ran into Xianyuan Lu. The two didn't dare to be high profile as they knew that the insane sect had too many enemies. They chose to travel in the remote shrubs and gradually approached Yi Qinghan and the others. Emperor Ye's zither music was to attract them. That night, most of the insane sect gathered. Only Nangong Yunao, Xianyuan Lu, and Nye Tian didn't meet up. Nye Tian was with Coiling Tiger at the moment. The two of them had similar temperaments, cultivated axe techniques, and had the aura of Pangu's axe technique. The two of them were on the same wavelength. They cultivated while searching for supreme god stones. Coiling Tiger didn't make things difficult for Nye Tian. On the third day, many people from the sacred grounds lost a portion of their members, but the number of supreme god stones they obtained was pitifully small. The most was 30 to 40 and the least was a dozen. They were all frowning. If they wanted to get full points, they would have to fight crazily on the last day. Even the top divine sons might die. Yi Qinghan had 360 supreme god stones. Jiang Jingtian, Gu Qingyu, and the others each found 3 to 5 supreme god stones. Altogether, they had 40 supreme god stones. Emperor Yi still had 100 supreme god stones. Even if he gave 100 supreme god stones to the peerless Holy Lands, he would still have 300 or so remaining. 10 supreme god stones could be exchanged for 1 drop of supreme god energy. That was 30 drops. For the entrance to the eternal cloud sky great world, at the critical moment, there would definitely be people willing to trade for 10 drops of supreme god stones. Yi Qinghan put all the supreme god stones into the great wasteland's steel and waited for Nangong Yunao and the others to gather. Emperor Yi played the zither, and the music was melodious. There were too many experts in the insane sect, and their equipment wasn't bad. Unless more than 20 sacred grounds and forces joined forces, a single force wouldn't be able to resist. The group moved forward in a high-profile manner. Wherever they went, even the top divine sons had to avoid the insane sect. Finally, at dawn on the third day, Yi Qinghan found Nangong Yunlan and Xianyuan Lu. Nie Tian was the only one still wandering outside. He couldn't help but worry. As time passed, the forces of the Holy Lands that had obtained the least amount of treasures began to panic. They were frantically capturing experts who acted alone. Even if they encountered a top-notch son of God, they would not let them go. Meanwhile, some of the top-notch sons of God, including Mo Li and Huatianhe, had begun to act alone to kill experts and compete for resources. In just a short span of half a night, more than 70 people were killed or injured in the space. Some forces, except for the Divine Sons, were almost completely annihilated. The primal chaos divine child, Ji Wuhan, was rather unlucky. Both he and Emperor Yi had suffered heavy injuries, and before he could fully recover his strength, he encountered another group of people. After a bloody battle, although he managed to escape with his life, his injuries worsened and he could no longer fight. He could only hide and lose the chance to fight for the Supreme Divine Stone. The Demon God Mountain had obtained more than 53 Divine Stones, but it was still a distance away from full marks. They began to gather their experts, preparing to kill the experts of the other camp. The sorcerer tribe had the most divine sons and divine daughters. Their cultivation bases were all top-notch kings. Perhaps they were not as powerful as the top-notch existences, but once they worked together, they would only be stronger than the Demon God Mountain. In addition to the sorcerer ancestor dragon, the resources they obtained were second only to the Demon God Mountain. They obtained 50 Supreme God Stones. Coiling Tiger brought Nie Tian and the experts of the Pan clan to gather. They obtained 48 Supreme God Stones. Huatianhe and the Vermilion Bird tribe obtained 45. The sacred grounds all had about the same number of Supreme Godstones. The Spacetime Sacred Grounds lineage was the worst off, as they only had 10 pieces. The Sky Overlord Supreme Godstones had all been snatched away, and these 10 pieces had been obtained by the ordinary kings. The Karma Holy Land suffered the most losses. Out of 20, only 12 remained. Even the strongest martial king Ji Tianxian had been crushed to death by Yi Qinghan. Fortunately, Ji Tianxian's demon spirit managed to keep the Supreme God Stone. In addition to what others obtained, the total number of Supreme God Stones exceeded 40. The Sky Overlord was unwilling to accept this. He gathered all his experts, a total of 14. Their losses were not too bad, and they adjusted their condition, preparing to do something big. Only by wiping out an entire Holy Land would they have a chance to participate in the competition. The Azure Dragon Holy Sun led a group of experts to search for Supreme God Stones. Their holy clans did not trust the human race, so they would not cooperate with them. Coincidentally, they met Huatianhe and the Vermilion Bird tribe. After a discussion, they decided to join forces with the Black Tortoise Holy Clan and the White Tiger Holy Clan to kill the experts of the Holy Lands and compete for resources. The 4 holy clans quickly gathered their forces, and there were more than 60 experts. Losing a dozen kings was not a lot. With these 60-plus experts, the 4 holy sons could crush almost any force. The Azure Dragon Holy Sun thought for a moment and asked, "Which forces should we attack?" "Find the strongest. They must have the most Supreme God Stones. There are only 3 choices in front of us: the Insane Sect, the Demonic God Mountain, and the Shaman race. Kill 2 of them and take their Supreme God Stones. That will be enough to guarantee our advancement." Huatianhe's eyes flickered with a soul-stirring flame. "If we fight with the Insane Sect, we will suffer heavy losses." The Black Tortoise Holy Sun frowned and reminded in a low voice, "The Insane Sect has at least 6 super experts and the inheritor of the Chaos Dragon. If we fight, I think we will lose more than half of our people." No one was willing to give up half of their kings. If the Insane Sect were to fight to the death, only 10 people from the 4 holy clans would be able to leave alive. As far as I know, the Insane Sect, the Demonic God Mountain, and the Shaman race are secretly cooperating. It is not realistic to fight against the insane sect. Why don't we surround the demonic god mountain or the shaman race, and catch them off guard, and take their supreme god stones? We will have hope of advancing. The Black Tortoise Holy Sun also felt that attacking the insane sect was too dangerous. The 4 holy clans were silent for a long time and did not make a decision. According to Hua Tianhe, killing the strongest was enough. It was obviously not enough to kill the demonic god mountain or the shaman race. The insane sect was in the eye of the storm. More than 60 top holy clans surrounded and killed more than 10 people. According to normal calculations, there was no danger at all. Let's test the insane sect first. If there is no chance, we will change. Killing people from other holy clans is not a big deal. Hua Tianhe suggested. The 4 holy clans discussed again and decided on their opponent. They all gathered and attacked toward Emperor Yi. More than 60 experts rushed toward the insane sect. Wherever they went, the experts retreated. They did not dare to fight back. Thick clouds rolled in from the horizon, signaling the arrival of a storm. Yi Qinghan saw that Di Longtian was still evolving. His body was covered in azure dragon scales, and his supreme godhead was fully formed. His primal chaos godforce had transformed into a long dragon. Looking into the distance, Yi Qinghan realized that something was wrong with the thick clouds. Not everyone could hide their killing intent. It was too thick and could not be hidden at all. Jiang Jingtian was a top expert of the Beast Tamer clan and was very sensitive to the aura of the Beast clan. He also found that something was wrong. The divine spear in his hand shook and he frowned. Something is wrong. Yi Qinghan stood up and signaled Emperor Yi to stop playing the zither. His eyes flashed. Thank you to everyone who tipped Wuxin. Chapter 11:22. The heroes of the Kuang sect all stood up and stood beside Yi Qinghan, looking into the distance. Dark clouds rolled in the supreme space as gales rose. All the forces fought for the supreme god stone, causing a bloody storm. No one could escape, and the same went for the insane sect. Sooner or later, there would be a powerful force that would turn their attention to them. Yi Qinghan gazed at the dark clouds in the sky and fell into deep thought. One force definitely won't dare to attack us. There should be at least 3 forces working together. We're too few, so we'll definitely be at a disadvantage. Everyone looked at Yi Qinghan, waiting for his decision. At this moment, Di Longtian crawled up from the ground. He was muddle-headed and didn't understand the situation. He didn't even know why he suddenly ran to Yi Qinghan's side. Yi Qinghan glanced at Di Longtian and didn't find anything wrong with him. He then scanned the surroundings. Apart from the ravines and bushes, there wasn't even a place to hide. It wouldn't be easy to fight with fewer people. My son and I will lead this group of experts around in circles. You guys move to another location and support us at any time. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. He decided to divert the trouble and drag the witch race and demon god mountain down with him. Then, Yi Qinghan took Ren Huangyi and rushed into the distance, while Gu Qingyu led the members of the Kuang sect in hiding in the opposite direction. They followed the gully and quickly left. The sound of the Guqin rang out again. Yi Qinghan brought Emperor Yi and quickly rushed in the direction of the sorcerer tribe and demon god mountain. Emperor Yi was in charge of leading the experts of the 4 sacred clans, while Yi Qinghan led Emperor Yi to maintain a certain distance from the 4 sacred clans. Finally, after 2 hours, they found the demon god mountain and went straight to the point with Emoli. They planned to work together with the witch race to destroy this wave of forces and fight for the supreme god stone. No one knew that Yi Qinghan had obtained so many divine stones. Emoli firmly believed that Yi Qinghan wanted to advance to the next battle, and not to kill his enemy with a borrowed knife. Yi Qinghan had only tricked him a little, and Emoli had already agreed. The main reason was that he was also lacking supreme immortal stones. Although he would not be eliminated, He still hoped to obtain full marks and obtain 2 entrances to the eternal cloud heaven. Without further ado, Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi led the people from Demon God Mountain and rushed towards the area occupied by the sorcerer tribe. An hour later, Wu Zulong heard that he was going to join forces with Guangzong to attack another group of forces and agreed without hesitation. A crafty look flashed across Emperor Ye's eyes. He knew that someone was going to be unlucky today. Soon, Yi Qinghan confirmed the location of the ambush. There were ravines everywhere in the vicinity, and he had Mo Li and Wu Zulong lead their own people to hide 300 miles away from the east and west. As long as they were not too unlucky, they would not encounter the people from the 4 great saint clans. Emperor Yi was playing his zither on a cliff in a canyon, while Yi Qinghan stood at the side, leaning on a stone wall, waiting for the experts to rush over. Master, what if Mo Li and Wu Zulong see that there are too many people on the other side and do not appear to trick us? What should we do? Emperor Yi gently stroked his zither and asked softly. Yi Qinghan laughed evilly and said indifferently, "They will definitely appear. As for whether we will fight or not, that's hard to say. It would be best if we can fight, but if we can't, then I can advertise that I am selling supreme immortal stones. 1 drop of supreme immortal energy is worth 10 supreme immortal stones. Anyway, I won't lose out." Emperor Yi rolled his eyes. He knew that Yi Qinghan would not lose out. Hua Tianhe and the others followed the sound of the zither and approached Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi. After more than 4 hours, they finally arrived at the canyon from the north. Looking from afar, on the cliff of the canyon, there was a man in a black robe filled with battle intent. His bold and vigorous silhouette made people feel apprehensive. He stood proudly beside a woman in white who was playing a zither. His silhouette was in harmony with this space, and his beauty was indescribable. Yi Qinghan did not seem to notice that the 4 great saint clans had joined forces to approach. He kept looking into the void and was deep in thought. His sharp face was emotionless as he stabbed into the stone wall. His hand was holding the hilt of his saber, and his domineering aura was displayed. Hua Tianhe saw that Yi Qinghan seemed to be waiting for him. He was not worried about being surrounded at all. None of the divine sons or saint clans were stupid. He guessed that Yi Qinghan had set up a great array and was waiting for him to enter. Emperor Yi was still playing the divine tune. However, the tune was light and lively. There was no killing intent or rhythm. It was intoxicating. But the more it was like this, the more vigilant the 4 great saint clans were. They maintained a distance of several dozen miles from Yi Qinghan. They could attack or retreat. All of you are guests from afar. Since all of you are here, why don't you get straight to the point and state your intentions? A majestic voice spread out. Yi Qinghan slowly turned around. A bright light pierced through space and time as he looked at the experts of the 4 great saint clans. Hua Tianhe looked at the Azure Dragon Saint clans, Black Tortoise Saint clans, and White Tiger Saint clans. There was some doubt in his eyes. However, he did not discover any ambush near Yi Qinghan. "Did you discover anything?" the Black Tortoise Saint clans asked. Hua Tianhe and the others shook their heads. They clearly did not expect the Demon God Mountain and the sorcerer race to be waiting 300 miles away. "I can't see through them. But I know that Yi Qinghan is not someone who will sit and wait for death. There is no benefit for us to go over now," the Azure Dragon Saint clan said seriously. Yi Qinghan shrugged. He did not expect the experts of the 4 great saint clans to be so vigilant. If he had known, he would have played the empty city stratagem with Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi pressed his jade-like hands on the zither strings. The sound of the zither dissipated. He slowly stood up and stood beside Yi Qinghan. He looked at the experts in the distance. There were more than 60 experts of the sacred clans. They were all super existences. If they surrounded the 2 of them, they could really kill them. Seeing that they were unwilling to come over, Yi Qinghan knew that the Demon God Mountain and the sorcerer race would not have the chance to launch a sneak attack. He went straight to the point and said, "Fellow Taoists, you must be here for the Supreme God Stones. I just happen to have some extra here that I can sell. If you are interested, come and talk." Hua Tianhe and the others looked at each other in dismay. They did not expect Yi Qinghan to have extra Supreme God Stones. "Come over here, let's talk," the Black Tortoise Saint Clans said. "Yes, come over here," the Azure Dragon Saint Clans immediately said. The four great Saint Clans seemed to have heard of Yi Qinghan's reputation. They maintained vigilance against him, and did not want to take the risk. Yi Qinghan shrugged. He did not expect his credibility to be so low. He could not help but sigh. He lifted his foot and walked towards the Azure Dragon Saint Clans. When Wu Zulong and Emoli heard that Yi Qinghan wanted to sell the Supreme God Stones, they immediately became anxious and rushed out. The four great Saint Clans could not help but let out a breath of turbid air. They were glad that they did not rush into the enemy's encirclement. "Fellow Taoist Yi, didn't we say that we are partners? Even if you really want to sell the Supreme God Stones, we should have the priority to buy them, right?" Emoli frowned and asked in dissatisfaction. "That's right, Yi Qinghan. We want the priority to buy them," Wu Zulong said bluntly. Yi Qinghan laughed. He was just worried that he would not be able to sell the Supreme God Stones. These two idiots actually came out to buy them. They were even afraid that he would not be able to buy them. "I don't have much stock, but I can still provide them to the 6 major powers. 1 drop of Supreme God energy can be exchanged for 10 Supreme God Stones. You can also exchange them for precious treasures and resources. The greater the quantity, the better." Yi Qinghan spoke nonsense. Chapter 11:23. When Emoli and the others heard that Yi Qinghan's paramount godstones could be provided to the 6 major powers, they couldn't help but be shocked. They stared at Yi Qinghan, unable to imagine just how many paramount godstones he had. Moreover, the price was too high. Paramount godstones were basically useless. Without other overgod artifact materials, no matter how many paramount godstones he had, he wouldn't be able to use them. Using his paramount godstones to exchange for paramount godstones was completely unnecessary. Indeed, Wu Zulong frowned and said unhappily, "This price is too expensive. It's not worth that much." Once Wu Zulong objected, the others naturally objected as well. They weren't willing to pay such a high price. Yi Qinghan pondered for a moment. He felt that it would be a waste if he couldn't sell the Supreme God Stones. He would sell as much as he could. It was better than letting it fall into his hands. After all, it was either he picked it up or he picked it up. "Then, how much are you willing to pay?" Yi Qinghan probed. Emoli's breath froze. He was almost angered to death. Was this guy here to snatch points or to do business? To think that he had treated him as his strongest opponent. In the end, was this how he tarnished his image? The 4 sacred clans and Wu Zulong were also confused. They couldn't understand how Yi Qinghan could act like this. This was clearly a money grubber. How could there be a supreme king who would lower himself like this and bargain with others? 1 drop of Supreme God power and 3 matured Supreme God herbs for 47 Supreme God stones. "This is my bottom price," Emoli said in a low voice. Yi Qinghan's eyes widened as he looked at Emoli with disdain. Even if he wanted to bargain, he couldn't cut it like this. He directly cut it by nearly 3/5. "My price is the same. I'm willing to trade now. 1 drop of Supreme God power first, and 3 matured Supreme God herbs can only be obtained after we leave," Hua Tianhe quickly added. Soon after, the others followed suit. They weren't willing to pay any more and wanted to join forces to force Yi Qinghan to sell the Supreme God Stones. The divine bird wretchedly crawled out and whispered, "If you can sell it, then sell it. It's useless to keep it anyway." Yi Qinghan hesitated for a moment, then raised a finger and said firmly, 1 square meter plus 1 giant soldier god material, 5 kilograms will do. Emoli and the others were infuriated. They had never seen such a calculative sovereign king. It was simply a loss of face for a sovereign king. If it's 10 kilograms, then it's 10 kilograms. This is a drop of supreme divine power. I want 47 godstones. Emoli said angrily. Yi Qinghan retracted his demonic god over god power, then casually tossed out 25 over god stones. He said calmly, "We'll hand over the rest after we get out. One hand over the money and the other hand over the goods." Emoli was so angry that he was trembling. Right now, he didn't even know if he should treat Yi Qinghan as an opponent. This guy didn't seem to act according to common sense. Very quickly, the 6 factions took out a drop of supreme divine power and took away 25 pieces of supreme divine stones. Yi Qinghan was very satisfied. Every drop of supreme divine power was used up. 6 drops was already a lot, not to mention that there were so many supreme divine herbs. There were more than 500 supreme divine stones in total. After taking away the less than 300 pieces, there were still more than 100 pieces left to sell. As for the supreme holy lands, they couldn't fight for a complete entrance. It was better for both sides to share an entrance. This would make it easier to fight for the resources in the Wangu Yuntian. Yi Qinghan thought for a moment and decided to sell the last 100 pieces. However, this time, he had to sell them for a good price. He had to sell them for at least 5 drops of supreme divine power. If they couldn't sell them, he would lower the price. When all the prices were settled, Yi Qinghan suddenly waved at the back of the 4 saint clans. Only then did the arrogant sex people appear. Especially Yen Yunbei. He almost blended into the enemy's group. When he attacked, he would definitely kill. The 4 saint clans were so scared that they broke out in cold sweat. They are all my customers. Ha ha ha, my attitude towards my customers is the best. Yi Qinghan laughed. However, the 4 saint clans didn't think so. How was this a friendly attitude? It was clearly a sneak attack. Humans really can't be trusted, Hua Tianhe said coldly. The Black Tortoise Saint Child, White Tiger Saint Child, and Azure Dragon Saint Child all snorted in dissatisfaction. They maintained a certain distance from Yi Qinghan. They didn't trust Yi Qinghan from the bottom of their hearts. Wu Zulong looked at Yi Qinghan coldly. His hostility towards him was especially serious. He even felt hatred. It was obvious that he blamed Yi Qinghan for taking away his witch god position. If it wasn't for Yi Qinghan, there wouldn't be a witch emperor. The 6th witch god would definitely be him. However, the Azure Dragon Saint Child stared at Di Longtian. There was shock and killing intent in his eyes, but more than that, there was confusion. How is this possible? The Azure Dragon Saint Child gripped the Dragon God's horn in his hand and said hoarsely. The experts of the Azure Dragon bloodline also looked at Di Longtian with disbelief in their eyes. Soon after, the other saint clans also looked over. After looking at Di Longtian for a while, they looked at the Azure Dragon Saint Child and frowned. The mark on Di Longtian's forehead suddenly became active again. An azure dragon like a small snake coiled around his forehead. Its supreme might intimidated everyone. Azure Dragon over God! Emoli blurted out in shock. Wu Zulong was also extremely shocked. He muttered, "How is this possible? How can an overgod of a clan have 2 overgod inheritors?" Yi Qinghan didn't know much about overgod inheritances, but Di Longtian was indeed a bit special. He was born with a divine dragon mark, and now he had evolved into an azure dragon overgod inheritor. The azure dragon on his forehead was an infant azure dragon overgod. It was normal for him to attract everyone's attention. Yi Qinghan quickly gathered with Di Longtian and the others, maintaining a certain distance from them. Subconsciously, he wanted to protect Di Longtian. He was afraid that the Azure Dragon Saint Child would forcefully kill Di Longtian and steal the Azure Dragon mark. Time passed quickly, and the third day was nearing its end. The first battle was about to end. Many forces didn't manage to gather 50 Overgod stones, and they would be directly eliminated. They all formed teams to fight for the last chance. Blood dyed the desert red, and a large number of kings fell. On the last day, almost 100 people died. On the third day, more than 200 people died. More than 50% of the 400 people died. If those kings knew that they could buy from Yi Qinghan, they would have already rushed over. Outside the space, the 20 Saint Lords looked at each other and joined hands to open the supreme space. They sensed the divine power of the experts inside, and quickly brought everyone out. Many peak divine sons were exhausted, especially the primal chaos divine son Ji Wuhan. He was covered in wounds. If it wasn't for his final struggle, he would have been beaten to death by Sky Overlord and Feng Qingshan. Whoosh, Yi Qinghan and the rest of the insane sect rushed out. However, they weren't in a hurry to sell the Overgod stones. Instead, they were looking for Nietian. They didn't expect him to be with Coiling Tiger and only reunite with them after exiting the supreme space. Yi Qinghan let out a sigh of relief. The insane sect had suffered 0 losses and gained the most. Looking at the forces that were about to be eliminated, his face turned ugly. He wanted to find a sacred ground that could sell the Overgod stones and earn more points in the second stage. He shouted, "I have extra Overgod stones here, but they are limited. If you want to buy them, then they will be gone." Whoosh! All the Saint Lords, Divine Sons, and Saint Sons of the Sacred Grounds stared at Yi Qinghan. "Brothers, the monthly votes will be doubled on the 1st of May. 1 vote counts as 2 votes. If Daodu wants to fight for a spot on the monthly votes leaderboard, the categories are all good. Of course, I will repay everyone with more chapters. 20 chapters will be the minimum until the end of the month. Please help me." Chapter 11:24. Whoosh! Everyone stared at Yi Qinghan with burning eyes. Many factions only had 40 or even 30 Supreme God Stones. If they couldn't get 50, they would be eliminated. It was clear that they were desperate to get their hands on the Supreme God Stones. Yi Qinghan looked at everyone's burning eyes and was overjoyed. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to take advantage of the Holy Land. If they missed this opportunity, they could forget about getting another one. If they didn't ask for an exorbitant price now, when would they? Come. Bid. There aren't many Supreme God Stones. If you miss this opportunity, you won't have another chance. The divine bird laid on Yi Qinghan's shoulder and shouted at the top of its lungs. Yi Qinghan shrugged. The divine bird was better at doing business than he was. If he asked them to bid, they would definitely bid the lowest price they had in mind. "I'll offer 6 stalks of divine herbs for 15 Supreme God Stones." The Primal Chaos Holy Land's holy leader shouted immediately. "Get lost if you have nothing to do. Don't disturb this divine bird's auction. 6 stalks of divine herbs for 15 Supreme God Stones. Why don't you go rob a bank?" The divine bird sneered. The Primal Chaos Holy Leader was so angry that he almost went berserk. If it wasn't for the fact that he didn't want to be eliminated, he would have flown into a rage. If you're sincere, use your Supreme God power to bid. If you can't afford it, then stand aside and play. Don't use your ignorance as a bargaining chip to test my patience, the divine bird said arrogantly. The holy leaders were enraged by the divine bird's arrogance. Nangong Batian, on the other hand, was amused. This fellow was just like Yi Qinghan. They could anger people to death and play them in the palm of their hand. The second sorcerer god sat in his own camp and listened to Wu Zulong's report. Although they had lost a son of God, overall it was still a success. 1 drop of Supreme God power and a few stalks of Supreme God medicine for more than 40 Supreme God stones was a fair price. Therefore, He was very satisfied with Wu Zulong's performance this time. He took out 6 stalks of Supreme God medicine and 5 kilograms of special materials for the giant God soldiers and asked him to exchange for the remaining 22 Supreme God stones. The holy lords of the 4 holy clans were also extremely straightforward. They handed over their resources in exchange for 22 divine stones. Yi Qinghan was left with more than 300 God stones. He kept 100 for himself and prepared to sell the rest in exchange for resources for the cultivation of the eccentric sect. The territory of the insane sect was located next to the Supreme Holy Land. Yi Qinghan was bored to death. He found a chair and sat down, letting the divine bird try to hoodwink him. Anyway, with its intelligence, he could definitely sell it, and the price would not be low. Nangong Batian walked over, looked at Yi Qinghan, and asked in a low voice, "Sect Master Yi, how many entrances are you planning to take?" "Senior, please take a seat." Yi Qinghan waved his hand and grabbed a chair. He gestured with his hand and said, "Senior, even if we get all the 200 points from the first round, in order to get 2 entrances, we need to win at least 150 battles in the arena. Only then can we secure 2 entrances. Do you think we have a chance?" 18 people. If they wanted to win 150 battles, it was equivalent to each of them fighting 10 battles in a row. Their opponents were the saints, sons of gods, daughters of goddesses, and superclass kings of the various holy lands. Even if Yi Qinghan could win 10 battles, it would be useless. Even Emperor Yi, Jiang Jingtian, and Nangong Yunlan could not win that many battles. Nangong Batian took a deep breath and felt helpless. It seemed that the Holy Land could only give up on their entrances and share one with the insane sect. Yi Qinghan said in a low voice, "It's almost impossible to get 2 entrances. Senior, instead of fighting them to the death, why don't we preserve some of our strength and secure one of the entrances? This way, the pressure on us will be reduced. At least no one will die. I think you don't want anything to happen to the Yunlan siblings, and I don't want anything to happen to the brothers and sisters of the insane sect either. I hope you can understand." Nangong Batian nodded, showing that he respected Yi Qinghan's decision. Just as everyone was haggling with the divine bird, the purple sage found Zixian, hoping to get 10 supreme god stones from her. The purple sage said in a low voice, "Sister, 10 supreme god stones are equivalent to 10 points. At least it can reduce the deaths of our clan's elites. You can help the insane sect, but you should at least help the Z family. I only have 3 supreme god stones. Brother Yi didn't accept them. If you want them, take them." Zixian sighed and handed the 3 supreme god stones to the purple sage. However, the purple sage was not satisfied. He only had 50 supreme god stones in his hands. He needed at least 60 for the Z family to have any hope of obtaining one of the entrances. After receiving the supreme god stones, he continued, "Go and ask Yi Qinghan for 10 more. If he really treats you as his brothers and sisters, 10 supreme god stones shouldn't be a big deal, right?" Zixian frowned and said unhappily, "Brother, don't go too far. If you lack supreme god stones, buy them yourself. He has helped me enough. He doesn't owe me anything. Why should I help you ask him for supreme god stones?" "Because you are a member of the Z family and I am your brother. Is it not worth it for you to ask?" The purple sage lowered his voice and asked angrily. Zixian looked straight at the purple sage and clenched her fist. She growled, "I gave you 3 supreme god stones. Those are mine. He didn't even want them when I gave them to him. But you are insatiable. This is the difference between you and him. I won't ask him for 10 more supreme god stones. Give up." "Zixian, have you grown up and don't need the Z family anymore? The Z family has nothing to do with you anymore? The Z family's honor and legacy have nothing to do with you anymore?" The purple sage's cold face was filled with anger as he questioned. The quarrel between the two attracted the attention of the insane sect. However, since it was a quarrel between the descendants of the Purple Emperor, they could only watch from afar. Yi Qinghan looked up and saw Zixian's angry eyes. Her eyes had changed color, and he couldn't help but frown. What's going on? Yi Qinghan pulled the corner of Di Longtian's clothes and asked in a low voice. Di Longtian pursed his lips and replied in a low voice, "The Purple Sage just asked Sister Zixian for Supreme God Stones. She already gave him 3 Supreme God Stones, but he wasn't satisfied. He wanted Sister to ask you for 10 more for the Z family. She didn't agree, so they quarreled." Zixian was so angry that her eyes were filled with tears. If she was really heartless to the Z family and didn't care about the legacy and honor of the Z family, why would she give 3 Supreme God Stones to the Purple Sage without hesitation? It was as if her kindness was taken for granted, and they wanted a yard after taking an inch. As for the Z family's resources, she only received a drop of Supreme God energy to protect herself. The other resources had nothing to do with her at all. Yi Qinghan slowly stood up and walked towards Zixian and the Purple Sage. "Looks like the insane sect doesn't treat you as a family. Isn't it just 10 Supreme God Stones? Look, they didn't say anything when they saw that you were in a difficult position. It shows that your value is only so." The Purple Sage saw Yi Qinghan approaching and raised his voice. It was as if he was saying this intentionally for Yi Qinghan to hear. Yi Qinghan smiled evilly. It seemed like the Purple Sage didn't want to bid, but wanted the Supreme God Stones. Chapter 3. There will be more updates, brothers and sisters looking for votes. It's getting more and more exciting. Chapter 11:25. Yi Qinghan leisurely walked behind Zixian. Zixian's emotions were stirred up and her mind was in a mess. She did not notice Yi Qinghan as her eyes were fixed on Zixing. Purple Sage was indifferent. He only wanted to get the Godstones and ignored Zixian's feelings. Yi Qinghan looked at Purple Sage coldly. If Purple Sage had lowered his status and came to buy the Godstones as a friend, Yi Qinghan would not be so stingy as to be unwilling to part with a few useless Godstones. However, Purple Sage had used this method to force Yi Qinghan to take advantage of him. Yi Qinghan patted Zixian's shoulder and pulled her to his side. He stared at Purple Sage and asked calmly, "I can give you 10 Supreme Godstones, but you have to give me a reason first." Purple Sage looked at Yi Qinghan coldly. He felt that it was Yi Qinghan who took away his sister. Otherwise, Zixian would not side with an outsider. "Because she is my sister, the goddess of the Z family. She has helped you for so long in the Kuang sect. She also helped you in this battle. Is she not worth 10 Godstones?" Purple Sage asked coldly. Yi Qinghan snorted and said coldly, "First of all, Miss Zixian has helped and supported each other in the Kuang sect. Secondly, I did not take any of the Godstones she obtained in the Supreme Space. I should have given them all to you, right? You are using such an aggressive method to squeeze the value out of your sister. As a man, I despise you. As an elder brother, I don't even want to talk to you. Because you are not worthy." The people of the Kuang sect and the other holy lands noticed the confrontation between Yi Qinghan and Purple Sage. They all stared outside the Kuang sect. The people of the Kuang sect still had no reason to interfere. They just waited for Yi Qinghan to make a decision. Seeing that Yi Qinghan didn't give him any face, Zixing's eyes flashed coldly. She is the goddess of the Z clan. It is only right for her to contribute to the Z clan. Since you said that we should support each other, why are you unwilling to part with 10 Supreme God Stones? It means that you only care about yourself and don't care about the other arrogant sect members. Yi Qinghan smiled and motioned for Zixian to calm down. Then he calmly replied, "This is not the reason why I should help you. Don't use this kind of thing to pressure me. Believe it or not, it's the Guangzong's business. It's not up to an outsider like you to intervene. You want to gain benefits for no reason and still want to stand on the high ground. Only you can do such a stupid thing. You. The aura of the violet sage changed as he attempted to forcefully snatch Zixian away. Yi Qinghan's cold aura shot out and confronted Zixing. The desolate aura of destruction forced Zixing to retreat. You want 10 Supreme God Stones? No problem. Since you think that Miss Zixian is a slave of the Z-Clan, it's only right for her to work for the Z-Clan. You even want her friends to help the Z-Clan. I have nothing to say. However, I am a stubborn person and will never compromise. If you want the Supreme God Stones, it means that the Z-Clan and Miss Zixian are no longer related. I will buy her out. From now on, don't look for Zixian as her brother. You want to buy her out with 10 Supreme God Stones? Dream on. Zixing sneered disdainfully and said coldly, 30 Supreme God Stones and that drop of Supreme God power in her hand. From now on, she will have nothing to do with the Z-Clan. Shua. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and took out 30 Supreme God Stones. He placed them in front of Zixing and said indifferently, I won't even bargain with you. Because in my eyes, she is worth more than 30 Supreme God Stones. But in your eyes, she is obviously worth less than 30 Supreme God Stones. Take your Supreme God Stones and scram. If you dare to appear in front of me again, I will break your legs. Zixing was stunned. He did not expect Yi Qinghan to be so straightforward. 30 Supreme God Stones were equivalent to 30 points. Even if 3 to 5 elite kings sacrificed their lives, they might not be able to get it. Zixian would not be able to get it either. Taking these Supreme God Stones was equivalent to exchanging Zixian's life. To him, it was a profit. Therefore, he did not hesitate to take the Supreme God Stones. Zixian was so infuriated by her greedy brother that she started tearing up. No matter how strong her cultivation was, family was still her weakness. At this moment, she was also helpless. This was a naked abandonment of her for the sake of benefits. Therefore, she did not hesitate to return that drop of supreme divine power to Zixing, along with a secret technique. From now on, she no longer had anything that belonged to the Z-Clan. Emperor Yi walked over from behind and held Zixian's hand. He gently rubbed it and comforted Zixing. Why bother with such a short-sighted person? The Z-Clan will regret it in the future. Emperor Yi comforted gently. Emperor Yi could understand the feeling of being abandoned for benefit. Back then, her fate was no different from Zixian's. Moreover, she was young and helpless. If Yi Qinghan was a bad person, her future life would be unimaginable. However, she was very lucky to have met the man who treated her the best. Zixian could not suppress the sadness in her heart. She sobbed softly, her tears flowing like water. Emperor Yi hugged Violet Deity and pursed his lips as he said, Sister Violet Deity, don't be sad. Back then, it was also Master who bought me. It was worth 2 low-level, tattered secret technique. Yours was much more expensive than mine. Look, I'm living quite well now. Yi Qinghan was amused by Emperor Ye's words. Zixian also smiled through her tears. Thinking about Emperor Yi, she was indeed much more expensive. Zixing coldly snorted and turned to leave without any hesitation or regret. Alright, from now on, you are a member of the Kuang sect. Back then, my son was not so sad. Yi Qinghan shrugged and teased. Emperor Yi rolled his eyes and snorted. Humph, back then I was too young and could not see. That was why you bought me so easily. TSK, TSK, TSK. The little money grubber mocked Yi Qinghan and said disdainfully, using the treasures that we worked so hard to find to buy a beauty. TSK, TSK. Shouldn't you compensate me? Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes and pretended not to hear anything. He turned and left. Ingrate. Burning the bridge after crossing the river. You have to be careful of him in the future. The little money grubber was very unhappy and tried to sow discord between the two beauties. Zixing used Zixian's fate to exchange for 30 godstones. The Z family's holy leader and elder were silent for a moment and did not say anything. This matter was considered settled. However, the divine bird cried out in the crowd. It used 10 godstones to exchange for a drop of supreme god power or rare resources. It sold the remaining 90 godstones. The divine bird collected the money, and Yi Qinghan paid the godstones. The transaction was completed quickly. A total of 6 forces were eliminated. However, the Holy Land of Time and Space were not stupid. The 6 forces worked together and put the godstones together. There were 3 more forces competing for the entrance. The cooperation method was the same as the insane sect and the Holy Land of Time and Space. After obtaining the entrance, both sides shared it. The 6 forces worked together in pairs, and their strength increased greatly. The number of elites increased by a lot. They chose the strongest 20 to fight in the arena. It would be much easier for them to accumulate points later. They might even be stronger than the insane sect. The arena was quickly built. The holy leader used a powerful array to protect it. Even the divine sons and holy sons could not break through the array and destroy Blue Sky City. The next round of the arena might be the cruelest. It was not easy to accumulate points. Basically, it was a fight with one's life. If they wanted to reduce their losses, it was almost impossible to win without cooperation. The insane sect, the sorcerer tribe, and the demonic god mountain. These 3 forces were tit for tat. For the sake of benefits, all hatred had to be put aside. Author's note: adding a chapter first. The main website is Genesis Chinese Network. Begging for monthly vote. Begging for help from tycoons. I will add more when the monthly votes reach 600. Chapter 11:26. That day was just a day for everyone to rest and prepare. Time flew by and no one spoke for the entire night. Everyone was focused on recovering and preparing for tomorrow's deathmatch. No one was sure they would win. 21 Supreme Gods and 21 Supreme Holy Land. The Pan Family Holy Land and 9 Heavens Holy Land were one family and had a very good relationship. Their cooperation was far better than the cooperation of other forces, especially the Crazy Sect, Demon God Mountain, and the Sorcerer Race. These 3 forces were obviously not on good terms and would be more ruthless than others. Yi Qinghan looked out of the window and pondered silently. If they were not careful in tomorrow's match, the lives of the Crazy Sect would be lost. He obviously did not want anyone from the Crazy Sect to die, not even one. The stars stretched for thousands of miles. Starlight sprinkled down, and moonlight poured down like a waterfall. There were no dark clouds and the pure night sky was unobstructed. However, the air was filled with an austere aura. There was no peace at all. The night wind swayed and blew his black hair, covering half of Yi Qinghan's handsome face. He tapped on the window with his fingertips and thought to himself, tomorrow's match will definitely be decided by drawing lots. The key is luck. If my Crazy Sect wants to secure a spot, we must be in the top 13, which means we need to have more than 160 points. We have the full score of Divine Stones, so we still have 60 points left. If the 18 of us want to get 60 points, we need to win 60 matches. On average, we need to win 3 matches. It was not easy to win 3 matches in a battle between kings, especially the divine sons and divine daughters of the Holy Lands. Their combat strength was even more terrifying than ordinary kings. Life and death were on the line. Winning 1 match meant that one's combat strength was terrifying. Winning 2 matches meant that the chances were slim. The more Yi Qinghan thought about it, the more pressure he felt. Until now, the Holy Lands had not decided how many points they would get in the arena matches. The higher the score, the harder it would be for the Crazy Sect because they were 2 people short. Now, according to 100 points calculation, Yi Qinghan felt that their chances of winning were not high. If it was 200 points, their chances of obtaining the entrance would be halved. If it was 300 points, the chances of obtaining the entrance would be very slim. Yi Qinghan calculated the points according to each point and put the burden of the battle on Jiang Jingtian, Gu Qingyu, Li Feng, Di Longtian, and Emperor Yi. He would have to bear double or even triple the pressure. The darkness before dawn quickly dispersed. The red clouds rose from the east and shone on Yi Qinghan's face. His tired eyes were bloodshot. Yi Qinghan leaned against the window and rested for a while. 2 hours later, the noisy world outside woke Yi Qinghan up. He tidied up his clothes and walked out of the courtyard. When he came out of the city, he realized that everyone from the Holy Lands had already arrived. The Holy Lords of the Holy Lands and the Serpent God had gathered together to discuss the points and rules of the arena matches. Yi Qinghan also came to the Holy Lords. Clan Lord Yi, how many points do you think we should set for the arena matches? Emoli asked in a deep voice. He obviously did not want the points to be set too high because he had the full score of God stones. 100 points. A holy land only needs to win 100 matches. If there are too many, I believe that the holy sons and divine sons of the Holy Lands will not be able to bear it. I support 100 points for the arena matches, the second sorcerer god said without hesitation. Emoli followed suit and expressed his support. 100 matches would be enough. However, the other Holy Lands were obviously unwilling to accept this. They did not have as many god stones as the 3 Holy Lands. They hoped to win more points in the arena matches. 21 Holy Lands. Yi Qinghan, the second sorcerer god, and Emoli's support was obviously not enough. Even if the 3 Holy Lords who were eliminated did not have the right to express their support, the remaining 16 Holy Lands were enough to push Yi Qinghan's decision. 200 points. Every force has to win 200 matches. This is the bottom line that I can accept, the Black Tortoise Holy Lord said firmly. Soon, the 4 holy clans expressed their support for the 200 points system. Then, some forces with fewer god stones also expressed their support. They hoped to suppress the insane sect, Demon God Mountain, and the sorcerer tribe's advantage in the later stages of the battle. As long as more than 10 holy lands supported it, the dust would settle. No one could change it. The Holy Lords lowered their heads and discussed. They all expressed their support for the Black Tortoise Holy Lord's suggestion. Yi Qinghan's 100 points system was overturned. Yi Qinghan frowned. A 200-point system would bring a lot of trouble to the insane sect. Since everyone agrees, let's go with a 200-point system. We'll draw lots. All forces will send out their elites to draw 200 lots and finish the battle. Every victory will be worth 1 point. No points will be deducted if they lose or draw. The final total will be the total points, the second sorcerer god quickly decided. The drawing of lots was divided into 2 parts, the passive drawing and the active drawing. The passive drawing was naturally to put all the participating elites of a certain faction into the box for everyone to draw. Whoever drew their name would go up to the arena with that person. There were no tricks involved. On the other hand, the active drawing was naturally to send out the strongest person to draw the other party's lot. This kind of drawing obviously had a higher chance of winning. Whichever side drew the lot first would definitely be the strongest. After the Holy Lords finished their discussion, they all returned to their positions and chose their fighters. The insane sect and the Supreme Holy Lands had no choice. There were only 18 people in total. Yi Qinghan gathered everyone and explained the rules. Then, he decided, Jiang Jingtian, Gu Qingyu, Li Feng, Di Longtian, Emperor Yi, and Nangong Yunlan, 6 of you will take the initiative to draw lots. Each of you will draw 18 lot. Every holy land will have to draw 1 lot. I'll draw 36 lots, so there will be 144 lots. As long as we win all of them, we'll definitely win the right to enter the arena. Of course, we won't take into consideration the 100% chance of winning. At the very least, we'll lose or give up 10 lots. So, the remaining 11 people will have to win at least one round to get the right to enter the arena. Everyone nodded as their fighting spirit soared. If the 11 of them won one more match, Yi Qinghan and the others could give up one more match and conserve their energy. One person had to fight 36 matches in the arena, which was extremely tiring. Although Yi Qinghan was confident, he was not dizzy yet. After 36 rounds, he would probably be exhausted. However, in order to get the right to enter the arena, he could only choose to fight with all his might. Jiang Jingtian and the others were under even more pressure. It would be fine if they met ordinary kings and divine sons in 18 rounds. However, if they met top-level divine sons, both sides would be injured, which would affect their future results. In order to obtain the highest chance of winning, all top-level divine sons must give up and admit defeat. Face is worthless. Only resources are, Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Everyone agreed. Even if they gave up the battle between the divine sons and divine sons, they would not get more than 10 points. At most, they would get more than 20 points. The insane sex luck would not be so bad as to keep drawing top-level kings. After deciding on the strategy, Yi Qinghan led everyone to the arena and prepared to draw lots. Chapter 11:27. The Guangzong had prepared a large box with 18 bamboo sticks with 18 names written on them. They were waiting for the powerhouses to draw their lots. Obviously, the other forces were not as crazy as Yi Qinghan, betting most of their chances of winning on a few people. That was because they had too many elite kings. They could easily exhaust a powerful force to death. The Guangzong had too few people and could not afford to waste so much energy. Many forces placed the boxes in front of the arena and waited for the lots to be drawn. The Guangzong was last in line, waiting for the others to use up all their slot. Most of the forces obviously did not arrange for their strongest to draw more than 10 lots. Instead, they divided the lots equally. Very soon, the results were out. Among the lots drawn by the Guang sect, Yi Qinghan and Yi Huang were not drawn even once. Jiang Jingtian, Gu Qingyu, and Li Feng were drawn 3 times. Nangong Yunlan was drawn twice, and Di Longtian was drawn twice. The remaining 8 lots were divided equally. Xianyuan Lu and Nangong Aoshue were not drawn. This kind of lot could be considered the best lot, the 2 weakest and the strongest were not drawn. Then, the Guangzong began to draw lot. Yi Qinghan took 2 lots from each box and threw them to the statistician behind him. Then, he continued to draw the second box. There were still 2 lots. All the Holy Lands looked at Yi Qinghan as if he was crazy. How could the challenge tournament between kings be so frequent? It was tiring. Soon, Yi Qinghan drew all 17 boxes. Finally, he drew one from the boxes of Demon God Mountain and Wu Tribe, making a total of 36 lots. Jiang Jingtian did the same. He only drew 1 lot from each box. He drew 17 boxes in a row. Finally, he drew an extra lot from the Wu Tribe. Li Feng, Gu Qingyu, Di Longtian, Renhuang Yi, and Nangong Yunlan were still the same. Their method of drawing lots made the Sorcerer Tribe and the Demon God Mountain feel a little incredulous, but after thinking about it they felt relieved. Although there were many top-notch cultivators in the Savage sect, the elite king-level cultivators obviously could not be compared to the Holy Lands. The statistics were quickly tabulated. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched as he looked at the character he had drawn. Damn it, why is my luck so bad? Looking at the 36 names and matches, Yi Qinghan felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He stood there in a daze. The divine bird curiously craned its neck to take a look and almost fell off his shoulder. It then cried out, "This divine bird is impressed. If I had known earlier, I would have helped you draw the lots." Jiang Jingtian and the others also stretched their heads over to take a look, and they almost spurted out blood. They saw Yi Qinghan's name list. First round, Dao Tian Yunfei. Second round, Hua Tianhe. Third round, Azure Dragon Saint Child. Fourth round, Black Tortoise Saint Child. Fifth round, Mo Li. Seventh round, Wu Zulong. Eighth round, they were all top-notch characters. If he gave up, it would be equivalent to giving up more than 10 points. This was forcing him to fight. Aren't you too unlucky? They're all peak kings. If they fight to the end, won't you be exhausted to death? Gu Qingyu said with a frown. Yi Qinghan's forehead was covered in sweat. He felt that his luck was heaven-defying. It was as if he had stretched out his hand to pick the names. All the peak existences of the various great saint lands were on his name list. Soon, Yi Qinghan's battle list was spread. Many sacred lords looked at him with strange expressions. Some of them were gloating, while others were pitying him. PFFF. Mo Li was tasting tea when he saw everyone's name list and matches. When he saw Yi Qinghan's match, he immediately spat out his tea. The second sorcerer god looked at the name list coldly and then looked at Yi Qinghan, who was standing there in a daze. His face was expressionless, and no one knew if he was happy or sad. The Saint Lord of the Great Saint Lands, Nangong Batian, felt a little dizzy. How unlucky must he be to draw such a bad name list? All of them were peak existences. If they fought one match a day, it would be enough to tire a saint child to death. Moreover, it was impossible to only fight one match a day in the arena. What should we do? You alone have 36 points. Jiang Jingtian smiled bitterly. With so many experts, both sides would be injured if they fought one-on-one, not to mention so many of them. Yi Qinghan's face twitched. He looked at Jiang Jingtian and the others' match list and realized that they would at most fight one or two peak existences. The rest were ordinary elite kings. As long as they had enough time to rest and had good healing resources, it wouldn't be a problem for them to fight their way to the end. What can we do? We'll fight them all the same. Yi Qinghan clenched his hand and crushed the parchment in his hand. A cold light flickered. Many saints and divine princes looked at Yi Qinghan with mocking eyes. They wanted to see how someone who wasn't the inheritor of the great saint lands would challenge the saints and goddesses of the 21 great saint lands. Yi Qinghan shook his head. His luck was really heaven-defying. Out of the 21 saints, he alone took on 19 of them. Other than Sky Overlord and Martial King Ji Tianxian, who had been killed, the rest were in the arena. The two weakest ones were not in the arena. There's only one arena with a radius of 30,000 meters. There's a barrier around it. In addition, the secret skill is a killing technique, so the arena is a life or death battle. Unless you surrender, there's no need to stop. However, if one side surrenders, the other side is not allowed to attack or kill. Otherwise, they'll be besieged. The second sorcerer god announced the rules in a dignified manner. There were only 2 rules. Everyone nodded in agreement. With these rules, they could at least reduce unnecessary death. No one knew if they could survive, but they could save their lives by surrendering. Yi Qinghan looked back at the insane sect and whispered, "Remember, reputation is not important. Resources are important and life is more important. The insane sect doesn't need heroes. Only those who survive are true heroes. No one is allowed to be stubborn." Jiang Jingtian and the others nodded. However, the strongest among them were not afraid. Even the strongest god's child couldn't kill them instantly. They could only improve after a life-and-death battle. The first person from the insane sect to fight was Di Longtian, who was also the one who started the competition. He was the one being challenged. The challenger was an elite king from the sacred land of time and space, Dark Parasol Sage. At this moment, he was looking down at everyone with disdain. Clearly, he wanted to start the first battle and make his name known to the world. Di Longtian was not famous before. He had always stayed in the sect. Dark Parasol Sage didn't know much about Di Longtian. He only thought that it was a good choice to use him to weaken the insane sect's morale. Therefore, he rushed to the center of the arena without hesitation. The barrier emitted a rainbow light that soared into the sky. The energy ripples were like water ripples. It could block any attack from the inside, but it wouldn't stop external attacks from entering. This made it easier for the sacred leaders to enter and rescue people. Di Longtian held the Heaven Path Killing God's sword in his hand. His golden armor danced as he walked toward the barrier. The Azure Dragon's aura was restrained, but the Azure Dragon mark couldn't be concealed. An energy golden dragon was swimming around the golden body. The sacred leader of the Qinglong Sacred Land's eyes widened. He stared at Di Longtian in disbelief, then turned around to look at the Azure Dragon Saint. His eyes were filled with doubt. Many of the sacred leaders were also shocked. Something must have gone wrong with the Azure Dragon's inheritance. Otherwise, there wouldn't be two direct successors. Whoosh! Di Longtian didn't care about the gazes of others. He stepped into the barrier. His battle robe fluttered as his left hand moved the hilt of the Heaven Path sword. Dark Parasol Sage looked at Di Longtian with disdain. His eyes flickered as his will controlled the Tao of time and space. He wanted to confine Di Longtian's body and destroy his golden body. Screech! Di Longtian's speed of drawing his sword was 10 times or even 100 times faster than his. He flicked the Heaven Path sword with his left hand. A sword ray appeared in the sky and tore apart the shackles of time and space, destroying Dark Parasol Sage's will. Boom! The sword was drawn and sheathed. In the blink of an eye, Dark Parasol Sage's body in the air came to a halt. Then, he fell from the sky, and blood splattered on the arena. Chapter 11:28. Outside Blue Sky City, there was dead silence. An elite king-level expert had fallen so quickly. Di Longtian's sword strike had clearly caused the heavenly Tao to rumble. The Azure Dragon appeared alongside the sword projection, and if one were to slow down his movements by 10,000 times, one would be able to clearly see the Azure Dragon piercing through Dark Parasol Sage's throat. The Azure Dragon entered his body, instantly destroying his vitality. Di Longtian killed one person, his face expressionless. He turned around and walked to the side of the barrier, waiting for the sacred leader to open it. The sacred leader was so shocked that he completely forgot to open the barrier. This was completely at the level of a top-tier saint child. A single sword had made a name for himself, Di Longtian. The barrier opened, and Di Longtian returned to the insane sect, winning the first point. The second round had nothing to do with the insane sect, and the king-level experts were not top-tier divine children. Yi Qinghan and the others quietly watched the show. The competition between king-level experts was hair-raising, and the slightest carelessness could result in death. The second round wasted a lot of time, and in the end, the Vermilion Bird Sacred Tribe won the first point. The earlier rounds of the competition were not that intense, but the more they fought, the angrier they became. Almost all of them had the goal of killing. The losers of every round were either killed or heavily injured. This caused the Holy Lands to become angrier and angrier, and their killing intent became heavier and heavier. The pride and arrogance of the Sword of Kings was forced to erupt, and a murderous aura filled the air. Yi Qinghan and the others sat quietly in their chairs, watching the battle between king-level experts. They had a clearer understanding of killing technique. Even the ordinary elite king-level experts had their own advantages. Yi Qinghan spoke softly about the battles between kings and explained them to the people of the Kuang sect. He explained their strengths and weaknesses thoroughly. If the Kuang sect were to encounter these people again, their chances of victory would be greatly increased. In the distance, Dao Tianxiangfei stared at Yi Qinghan. His first battle was Yi Qinghan. The battle intent in his eyes was almost tangible, and the sky-splitting divine bow in his hand flowed with divine light. His Tao was boundless, and it filled 100 miles. Dao Tianxiangfei was definitely one of the strongest divine children. He had a 60% chance of winning against Mo Li. Yi Qinghan glanced at Dao Tianxiangfei out of the corner of his eye. His fingertips tapped on the chair as he silently considered whether he should give up on this battle so that he could prepare for the following battles. In his eyes, face was not important. Survival was more important. However, the corners of Dao Tianxiangfei's mouth curled up as he stared coldly at Yi Qinghan. It was obvious that he was declaring war. At this moment, the Sky Overlord secretly transmitted a message to the other Saint Princes. Other than Mo Li and Ji Tian of the Karma Supreme Holy Ground, the other Saint Princes gathered together. Yi Qinghan is just a newly emerged powerhouse. Now that he's riding on the sacred land's head, I'm sure all of you will feel embarrassed. Let's work together and get rid of him. Sky Overlord suggested in a low voice. I agree. No matter how strong he is, he's just an outsider. He's not a supreme inheritor. He shouldn't be a dark horse. A dark horse should be born in our holy land. Ji Wuhan looked at Sky Overlord coldly. Although there was some animosity between them, they were still very xenophobic when it came to the sacred land's interests and dignity. Hua Tianhe and the others did not reject and quietly waited for someone to suggest a plan. Sky Overlord saw that everyone had the same idea and said, I've seen his battle list. It's all top-notch saint princes and elite divine princes and divine princesses. We should all fight him with the mentality of killing him. If any of us are injured and can't participate in the next round, the other holy grounds should give way and admit defeat. Let him get 1 point and give him time to recover. Do you agree? The Black Tortoise Saint looked at everyone and asked in a low voice. Many saint princes agreed and wanted to get rid of Yi Qinghan first. Yi Qinghan leaned on his chair as he looked at the numerous saints gathered. Only Mo Li and Ji Tian were missing. He could already guess what was going on. It was obvious that this group of people was here to deal with him. His deep eyes flickered. Yi Qinghan pulled out the divine bird and asked in a low voice, How do you think I should fight? Fight 2 rounds. Take a break. Show your goodwill and take a break. Injure the opponent severely and make others misunderstand that you have an agreement with some of the saint princes. This group of saint princes seems to be cooperating on the surface, but they don't trust each other in their hearts. Instigate them slightly and their alliance will fall apart, the divine bird said cheekily. Yi Qinghan chuckled. This despicable bird really had a lot of ideas, and its mind worked really quickly. As a reward, he pulled out a supreme saint herb from his Qiankuan ring and tossed it to it. Thank you for your generous gift, master. The divine bird accepted the sacred herb with a smile and kept it in its yin and yang ring. Time flew by quickly. 6 rounds were fought in 6 hours. After 1 round ended, another round started quickly. It was easy for one person to fight 2 or 3 rounds consecutively. The next round will be between me and Dao Tianxiangfei. Following that will be the arena match between me and Hua Tianhe. Yi Qinghan looked at the order of the matches. His matches were almost all linked together. There was no way he could fight them. Forcefully defeat Dao Tianxiangfei and defeat Hua Tianhe. The next match will be between the Azure Dragon Saint Prince and the Azure Dragon Saint Prince. Immediately admit defeat. After all, their Saint Prince is involved with that brat Long Tian. They have a reason to admit defeat. Let everyone suspect the Azure Dragon Saint Prince. This will reduce the pressure on us, the divine bird said calmly. Yi Qinghan nodded and prepared to follow the divine bird's suggestion. If possible, he would forcefully defeat Dao Tianxiangfei and use the Great Wasteland's steel to suppress Hua Tianhe. Even if he ran out of energy, he would just admit defeat. Soon, the arena match ended. Just as the people inside the enchantment stepped out, Dao Tianxiangfei forcefully stepped into the enchantment. Before Yi Qinghan could admit defeat, he said, Yi Qinghan, come up and die. forceful enough. If Yi Qinghan admitted defeat, he would probably lose his dignity, let alone his face. Yi Qinghan smiled and slowly stood up. With a wave of his hand, the berserk steel appeared in his hand. 2 balls of flames appeared in his deep eyes. His dragon blood boiled and his 5 elemental Tao body was activated. The power of desolation was attached to his body. Before he entered the enchantment, he had adjusted himself to his strongest state. The heaven desolation technique was already at the critical point of eruption. Yi Qinghan stepped into the enchantment. The 2 of them were speechless. They could only fight. Dao Tangxiangfei did not hesitate at all. He directly grabbed a real sky-splitting divine arrow. The arrow was cold and soul-stirring, shattering the space around it. Hiss hiss hiss, the bowstring was pulled back. Dao Tangxiangfei's aura broke through the clouds. His divine power poured out, and the divine arrow broke through the void. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of Yi Qinghan. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. The void in front of them collapsed. A terrifying energy rushed out from the ground and protected the ground. Otherwise, the entire blue sky city would have been shattered. Boom! Yi Qinghan held his blade with both hands and slashed forward, crashing into the sky-splitting divine arrow. His divine robe rumbled, and the enchantment was clearly distorted. It was almost shattered. Yi Qinghan and Dao Tangxiangfei's strength was already extremely close to the Divine Lord level. The collision between the 2 of them was immeasurable. The divine arrow trembled in the air and crazily rushed forward, trying to break through the barricade. Hum hum hum, hiss hiss hiss, the ear-piercing sound pierced through the enchantment. Many people could not bear it and frowned. Boom! Yi Qinghan took a step back. The tip of his foot shattered the ground. His heel was pressed against the enchantment. There was no way back. The veins on his arms bulged, and his blood vessels were about to burst. The dragon blood in his body flowed 100 times faster. He twisted his waist and pushed forward, knocking the divine arrow away. Bang! Dao Tangxiangfei's body trembled, and took dozens of steps back. His face was pale. The soul consciousness left on the divine arrow was clearly injured, implicating his soul. Whoosh! The divine arrow returned to Dao Tangxiangfei's hand in the blink of an eye. He swallowed a drop of diluted divine power. He did not hold back. Not only did he want to obtain this point, but he also wanted to defeat Yi Qinghan and spread the name of the Dao Heaven True Lord Holy Land. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.